Hello and welcome to episode 192 of The Great and Crowbar. It is the 8th of June 2017. My name is Chris Thurston and tonight I'm joined by Tom Francis.
Hello.
And Alex Wiltshire.
Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. On the eve of E3, when truly there finally is basically no news, except there is, sort of.
There's dribbles.
Dribbles, the little phlegmy precursors.
It's the stuff that people wouldn't be interested in.
I don't think that's entirely fair to XCOM.
Oh! XCOM, you say?
Yeah, so this is good because this is something that's going to be announced on Monday, apparently. It's been teased today by Firaxis. It's being announced on Monday at the PC Gamer show at E3, which this is the first year where I have no idea what's happening at that show, so I'm not even pretending not to know now. I genuinely don't know.
They're pretty good at keeping secrets.
PC Gamer?
You used to be good at keeping secrets.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I ever blabbed about anything that was coming up for anything, really, I think. But yeah, so they mentioned today they announced today that 2K Firaxis would be at the show, and then Firaxis tweeted the XCOM 2 logo with some spooky alien eyes behind it and the phrase, "The real war starts now," with no question mark. The question mark was implicit as mine.
The first war was like for the saving the Earth, so I mean, how real are we talking?
Oh, I see. So now you're dealing with the actual aliens from their planet.
Well, I could minor spoilers for so XCOM 2 and XCOM 1 have really similar endings, which is because XCOM 2 is set in a world where XCOM 1 didn't finish.
Yeah.
Because if you finished XCOM 1, you got the good ending, and XCOM 2 is set assuming that XCOM failed and the world needed taking back. And it does end with, this isn't really a spoiler for what actually happens in the plot, a very heavy teaser for sort of sea aliens in the sort of Terror from the Deep. I think it was Terror from the Deep, wasn't it? The XCOM 1 expansion.
Yep.
Sort of theme.
Actually.
Standalone. Expandalone.
Expandalone.
It's the only word worse than bookazine.
Or phablet.
Oh, I think phablet wins.
Anyway. So maybe they take it in that direction. I assume it involves some sort of additional alien threat, perhaps. I mean, that's not a thing.
Spoilers.
Yeah. As, even as Julian Gollop returns to the genre with a bucket of crabs.
I'm excited because I wrote a blog post about what I didn't like about XCOM 2 and how I would fix it. And Jake Solomon tweeted to say, these ideas all belong to us now.
Your game.
So I assume they've just made the game I asked for.
What did you ask for, Tom? Because my next question was going to be, what would you ask for?
I wanted less snowballing. Like, it was specifically about the thing where...
Snowboarding?
Snowballing.
Okay.
Is that the bit in Final Fantasy?
Much
yeah,
I couldn't stand
the
that
SSX
bit.
tricky sequence is just really out of place. Like, especially when you lose your best guy.
Sectoid snowboard after.
Yeah, exactly.
We're coming after in skidoos.
Yeah, exactly. We have a crisis mission for you, Commander. And this one's radical. And then you lose your best guy because you've assembled an international task force of amazing special forces operatives, but not all of them can snowboard, and that's not their fault. And it's just a horrible way to die if you don't know what you're doing. Sorry, you were saying something.
My issue was that once you start snowboarding in XCOM, you just get so good at it that suddenly it's so easy to snowboard. And then if you fail at snowboarding, if you wipe out early on, then it's even harder to snowboard from then on. And so one of my ideas was, there was a bunch of stuff about how you level up, and I think you shouldn't keep increasing in health when you level up, because that makes your more experienced guys even tougher, and so the better you get, the easier it gets. And also, I suggested having like low profile missions, like special missions that are on top of all the other things you can do. You can also send some people on these missions, but you can't send your best guys because they're well known now, like the aliens are looking for them, and it's like in a civilized area, so you're going to have to get some people that they don't know are part of the resistance yet.
I like the idea with XCOM. I think I would prefer, your advancement to be mostly located within the technology you have, and the skills of your personnel are maybe basic, or like the traits that get applied to your personnel are as likely to be bad as good, and people die more often. Because I think you can attach kind of like, my people have more health now, my people are better shots now to their gear. to an extent. Like, I have better armor as long as I can afford to keep producing it. I have better guns as long as I can afford to keep producing it. And that allows you to have the sort of lethality of the game turned up a bit without feeling like a game over. Because at the moment, so much of the usefulness of an operative is on their unlocked skill trees and stuff, which is one way of doing it, but it means that you end up with that I have an A-team situation.
Yeah.
And the A-team can solve anything.
Yeah, my thing was partly inspired by one mission, all my good guys were injured, and so I sent my B-team on that mission, and that mission was amazing. It was a complete, edge of your seat, white knuckle ride with calamitous disasters and scraped through at the last minute, and it was the most fun I had in my whole campaign. And it was because it was a bunch of shitty idiots.
Yeah, exactly. But it feels like it's more, it may be easier to kind of provide those sort of highs and lows more reliably if your power level was attached to your gear, which is kind of an idea to nick from, of all things, Zelda, because that's something maybe this is totally just now a XCOM hypothetical design session that will have no bearing on the thing they announced on Monday, but something I love about Breath of the Wild, which we still need to do our podcast about, Alex, is the fact that all your equipment can break or be lost or whatever, means that you should equip the gear you need for the task you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
Which is obviously means something very specific in the context of a Zelda game, but it applies, I think, pretty interestingly to an XCOM game. It should be that, the threat of losing gear or having gear break in the field means that you gear your squad for the task they need to perform. So, maybe a exfiltration mission or something like that is plain clothes and pistols, and that's because that makes sense and that's easy to get in, but it's the same people, and then for the big mission, you totally deck them out, whereas I find that it just tends to be this sort of one escalation curve that everybody's on, and everyone just ends up with a mega powerful, hyper power armored, minigun wielding Mega Man.
Yeah. It's good for every situation.
Yeah, because there's never a reason to kind of tune it up and tune it down and use the whole range. And I think that's how I would prefer XCOM to work, I think.
Well, I don't think that you could probably do equipment breaking in the field and death. I think that's kind of lost too far, I
don't know. I mean, it depends on how easy it is to replace people and how easy it is to replace gear necessarily.
I think you kind of, XCOM is famously the game where you care about, your squad and you kind of build relationships with them.
Yeah.
You kind of, I would hope that not too many players get, an emotional attachment to their trousers or gun.
So one of the DLCs adds a few unique weapons. So there's a crossbow.
Oh, yeah.
And, can't remember what the other one is. It's an axe that you can throw. And those are you just get one of them forever. And if you lose it in combat, then it's gone forever. That doesn't really end up being very interesting because the person you give it to is awesome. and it makes them better. And so they never die.
I really should know this because I have started to play the game several times and I just get lost at the start. But is it like the original, UFO where you equipment is on the ground, and if one of your people dies, if you want their equipment, you'll need to go over to their bodies and pick it up.
I think it's tied to their body, so you can't take it from them, but if you take their body out, you'll get the kit back.
And you'll get the stuff back, right?
I think that's right.
I think that is right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's more, I think the way to think about it is to make, I would say that sort of micromanaging your equipment to be that efficient with what you bring and what you risk would be high-end play. So you can take everything to every mission if you want, but maybe on a harder difficulty setting, you're encouraged to try and achieve things with the minimum risk to your really good gear, which I think would be a nice way to make it more interesting over time. I think it's more of a tuning issue. I think people get attached to their characters kind of regardless. I think you don't need a really strong and pronounced sense that this person's amazing now to make someone care. To be honest, as soon as you let someone name a character and pick what colour hat they wear, they probably already care about them, I would argue.
I think there's still value in having certain aptitudes. I think it'd be good to have skills, locked down skills on characters anyway. So the sniper who can take a second shot or, can do,
For sure. I think there's room for that stuff. I think it doesn't need to be as polarizing though as it can be. I think maybe even having it be class based. I really like the sort of the arc you have with the Darkest Dungeon character, where you care about them, but they gain terrible traits and good traits at about the same rate. And so you go on a journey with each of them where they go through their amazing period and then they get past their prime and you kind of retire them and you only bring them out. Like, that would be an amazing trajectory for an XCOM soldier if it's like, they get, like, rather than just getting better forever, they get good, you send them on more missions, they see some shit, and then you only take them out when you need that specific skill because there's a downside to whatever kind of injury they've incurred or trauma that's been inflicted on them. Like, I guess that's the thing I want XCOM to do is have, like, be more of a sine wave, less of a just a you know, an escalation curve where as soon as you've got, as Tom says, as soon as you get snowboarding, there's no reason to stop snowboarding. And it's really hard to stop snowboarding, actually, unless you fuck it up really badly.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a strategy game that's done that sort of thing.
Well, so there's the Long War mod for XCOM 2, has some kind of system. I haven't played it, but I've heard there's a system where it takes a while to sort of infiltrate people. And so there's like mission opportunities and you can send some people, but it takes time for them to like be infiltrated. And so the more people you want on that mission, the longer you have to sort of invest in.
I played it a little bit.
I think it's like, so you kind of commit your people and they're
yeah, it takes some amount of time of waiting on the world map for them to be ready, basically.
Yeah, so if there's other opportunities in the meantime, you can't use those guys for that.
And that means you're having to mix more characters in. Yeah,
and if you want to get there faster, you send fewer people. So if you think you can do the mission with 2 people and you don't want to miss other opportunities, or you have 3 opportunities at once and they're all time limited, then getting ready for all of them at once might be a case of making decisions about how many people you really need, which is a nice idea, but it's daunting. Like, it is, you know, a level of confidence above where you normally are with XCOM, which is like send everybody, where the first upgrade you get is bigger squads, so you can send more people, like, because that seems like such a huge power spike. I really love what they've done with Long War. The game itself is so rich, and so, with that potential, those potential changes. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they announce. It could be squids. I reckon squids. My money's on squids.
Yep. Don't disagree.
Speaking of aliens, oh boy.
This is a good one.
It almost was.
I don't know where we're going yet.
We're going to space, Tom.
We're in space.
Okay.
So there was a...
okay, yeah.
We're going to take a magical journey to Andromeda.
Oh, that's a name. That's a name I haven't heard for a long time.
Alex is throwing away a cigar as he says that.
That's a name I've not heard since I was a boy in February or whatever, March. So there was, I think, was it Kotaku did a big piece?
Big Kotaku.
Big Kotaku did a big piece on, sorry, I'm going to on the trials.
Was it on Andromeda?
On what? Andromedon.
Andromeda.
Yes, on the making of Mass Effect Titus Andromedan. Which I guess, like, so I haven't read this article, I need to preface this, and we were talking about it beforehand, and I guessed all of the things that are in this article that went wrong with the making of the game, but it's, by all accounts, interesting look at why Andromeda ended up being released as it was. I say that with some skepticism because I actually really like Andromeda and it's aged very well in my brain.
Yeah.
You've read it, right, Alex?
I have, yeah.
I have not.
Oh no, it's all on me to remember.
I read a bit of it. But the thing I got most of the gist of it, but, does it ever explain why the circumstances were so constrained, why there was such a tight budget, and so it had to be done with, a suboptimal number of people?
That's a good question.
It seems like a franchise that makes a lot of money. Like,
yeah, I don't know, because it was a satellite studio, but they were well funded. I mean, it was meant to be a huge project, although I don't think that it does explain why it was so constrained, because one of the big points of it is that the animation team was severely constrained. Amongst many other problems, but they didn't have enough staff for the amount of work they did. And it was a shitload of work because it has more dialogue than any other Mass Effect game by a large factor, and more characters, and that is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And they tried going procedural at first?
Yeah, so I believe that originally the whole project started 5 years before it came out, so it was a long period.
Well, they started right when Mass Effect 3 ended, right?
Yeah.
Because that was 2012.
And then they had high ambitions for the project, that it was, going to be huge. And
the part I did read said that they're really excited about the idea of combining like procedural, endless worlds with BioWare's storytelling.
Yeah.
And just right off the bat, you're like, how?
Oh, okay.
How would that ever work?
So I think a lot of that time in that 5 years, for 3 years, essentially, they tried to hash out the technology that would make procedural universe, and then figure out how to put a game and a story inside that. And turned out that was quite difficult.
I started to feel like that whole idea is a trap.
And
I would have thought making infinite planets was ambitious.
And so I think in the last 18 months or 2 years, they used some of the technology they developed to rescale the whole thing and go manual. So they generated a load of planets, or a small number of planets, and then manually put the environments in them and manually put the stories in. But it's that would be the game. They were solving all the important problems. How do you make a big universe and a coherent story? That is fucking cool. That is a cool question. I can see. So I think one of the interesting things about it is that the staff found the first part of the pre-production, absolutely amazing. Like the best point of their entire careers, and then actual production, where everything kind of fell apart and they had to really rush, the worst part of their careers. And it's kind of sad, really, to see ambitions crush like that.
What was the Dragon Age Inquisition team? Was that just like the Dragon Age 2 team, or was it?
I think it was, well,
that was being done out of Edmonton, so BioWare's kind of central studio.
I think they gained some people from the Mass Effect 3 team when that ended, and then.
Right.
But it's the central. I know it's the central like creative team that are on all the Dragon Age games, and then a tech team from the Mass Effect team and DICE, I think, because that was right when that was
Frostbite,
and that was their first
DICE's
Frostbite
engine.
game.
Yeah, because that was Frostbite Engine, which is one of the difficulties cited with Mass Effect Andromeda, and that game just seemed to be incredibly accomplished. Like it just seemed to be great and well made, and I'm sure it was super difficult. I was just wondering if like maybe.
It said they faced the same kind of problems, but kind of at the same time, if you sort of mean.
It seems like making a game of this scale is just phenomenally hard always, but the reason that BioWare have done it so well so many times successfully is that they have a team who've done it a whole load of times, and so it's a well-oiled machine for the most part. But obviously if you switch teams and studios on that, it falls apart.
Yeah, I think they had focus before in a way that they didn't have, because Mass Effect 1 was, they must have had problems making that game, but it was still very, it's
a janky game as well.
Yeah. And then Mass Effect 2, they could pick on all the good stuff in the first one and just refine. Mass Effect 3, same again. And then they wanted to tear it all up and start, really pushing.
Yeah, I think, I've still probably said everything I'm going to say about Andromeda, but I meant what I said earlier, it has aged really well in my brain. I spoke to Tom Hatfield, friend, about it over the weekend, because he's the only person I know who's finished it. And both just had fun memories of it. It has a great ending. It has, it has loads of hits. I think now that, knowing or hearing that it was put together in a rush after its initial design failed, I think they did a really good job under those constraints. And it's a shame that, given that it has so many of the same problems as the first Mass Effect game, that it doesn't look like they're going to get a chance to Mass Effect 2 it, to learn, to take the same technology, learn how to use it better, to take the same ideas and take away what didn't work and polish up the things that did, feels like there's a sort of process of invention and development there that's just been sort of brutally axed, obviously partly by EA presumably, but also by a sort of a public for the game that has just sort of totally rejected it without, any kind of, without nuance, I suppose. The backlash was so absolute and so sort of immediate, and by all means they do bear some responsibility for having bad facial animations and things in the game at launch, but it definitely felt like they weren't expecting an absolute rejection on that level.
Yeah.
And ironically, the only other game I can think of that's hit exactly the same thing recently is No Man's Sky, which had exactly the same, you know what I mean? It's the same sort of like, don't try and do Infinite Planets.
Yeah.
Because people will instantly hate you and never let go of that opinion. Like, it's a strange
they did,
phenomena.
They just patched it, didn't they? Partly to make Jarl bisexual. The
really?
Angaran guy. Because they said that there are no squad mate same-sex romances for the male rider. And so now there is.
Yeah, because there's a crewmate same-sex romance, but not a squad mate same-sex romance, and that distinction makes a difference, I think.
Well, yeah, when I read it in the patch, I was just like, why is that a big deal? And then I remembered, in Mass Effect 3, there's no... am I wrong in saying
Steve.
this?
No, you're remembering it right. Actually, no, Kenny
I
runs Caden?
was going to say, sorry, no, as a female shepherd, there's is her name Kelly, the lady on the Normandy who you can romance?
So there's Kelly on the Normandy 2, and there's Sam Trainer in Normandy 3.
Oh yeah, I think maybe thinking of Sam. Anyway, there wasn't like a squad mate, and I realised like squad mates are the ones you go on the missions with and spend all of your time with, and so if your romance option is not one of those people, you're going to meet them like 3 times and say hi.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's obviously they're being responsive. But...
I mean, that's addressing that sort of patch is addressing the engaged players, which is kind of all they can really do now. You know,
guess whether a bunch of people are angry about it. They are.
I find the whole thing just kind of fascinating and sad at the same time, because it's kind of mad how ambitious those games are in terms of what they try and do in terms of play and storytelling and technology and all the rest of it, those things. And it's sort of mad vaunting ambition, and the lesson apparently is like, don't have those.
Yeah, don't have big ideas.
Like, do a small thing well.
Honestly, yeah, like my growth as a developer has been more or less in those lines. Be much less ambitious. Make something a lot like something that already exists. Just take something that already exists, like do 90% that, and then like the 10% can be different.
Yeah, and that's maybe a slightly depressing thought, really. But yeah, so I think Andromeda is going to be one of those games like Knights of the Republic 2. Where for the people who liked it when it came out, the similar games again in some ways, a bit janky when they came out, subsequently fixed, but with like loads of heart and interesting ideas and cool characters and cool arcs and story moments and stuff, and that stuff will kind of remain buried treasure for as long as people are put off by that backlash. And at some point, someone's going to pick up Andromeda not knowing the history for a tenner in a Origin sale and think it's great.
Oh, it's alright, this.
Yeah, exactly. like, and that's a sort of a sad fate for a series that was kind of so prominent. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Not have tired faces in your game. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth the universal backlash.
It's that thing though of always wanting better. It was interesting that kind of, I think that, the old Unreal Engine 1 and, they looked good, and then suddenly you see this brand new one in the fated sort of, Frostbite, which looks so good in Battlefield or whatever. Yeah. And everything looks not as good. And you kind of think, but one of the points in the feature is that, that the, as they were fixing problems towards the end of development, they would, fixing one thing would break other things. Mm-hmm. And so the game would just look progressively worse, even as they were kind of fixing things, and which was entirely depressing, inside. And, there was a comparison shot in there, which I didn't see the first time around when it was being sort of going around the internet, but there's a shot that was leaked from 2015 or something, where everything is of the same scene, which everything's lit really nicely, and then zoom forward to the release game and it looks really flat and horrible, and it's like that must be so painful as just to know that that's happened, and to know that what are you gonna do?
And I think also the kind of increased ambition is kind of a curse, because if you go and look at except maybe in the sort of the big showcase moments in Mass Effect 3, if you go and look at the blocking and cinematography of scenes in the original trilogy versus Andromeda's more often much more ambitious. Dragon Age got there as well, from the course of its games into Frostbite. But when you have more ambitious staging and characters occupying more interesting positions, not just standing in a triangle talking to each other, like characters leaning on stuff and sitting in chairs and standing up and looking into each other's eyes and all the kind of extra level of sophistication. As soon as you get there, you need the animation resource to go with it.
Yeah, so if they're just looking straight at you, it doesn't have to work so hard.
Like that clip that did the rounds of the internet right when the game came out of Cora walking away from like an early conversation where she just sort of walks like a sassy robot for no reason. That's clearly because no one had the time to kind of fix her walk cycle for that. But like the whole sort of someone showing up in a conversation, saying their bit and then leaving to do something else is like a level of sophistication that, like, you know, in Mass Effect 1, that would have been the awkward, like, you know, full on Jerry Anderson shoulder turn, bounce out of shot kind of thing. And no one would have batted an eyelid because you saw less, you know what I mean?
Because the camera was brutally kind of
zoomed in, you know, like, it's funny what you do and don't forgive, like, because they show more and have the potential to do more.
But the exponential amounts of technical and kind of, and creative, requirements kind of zooms up.
Yeah, there's a moment sort of middle, late part of that game, which is actually very similar to a moment in Dragon Age Inquisition from an animation point of view, where it's one of the end of like the Kadara arc in Andromeda has Ryder sitting on like a high up container, kind of watching the sunset over a settlement, passing a bottle with another character who's sat next to them, which is way more sophisticated in terms of what two characters are doing in a scene than most things in BioWare games of a previous generation. And it looks, you know, fine in Andromeda. It looks good, apart from the fact that like sort of trying to guess where Ryder's mouth is going to be for like lifting the bottle is a bit of a minefield, and it's a problem that I don't remember them having with a very similar scene to characters sat on a rooftop in Dragon Age Inquisition. And it just goes that you go that extra mile, you get it right, and people aren't going to point out that like, Ryder just put this bottle up her nose. Like, it's that, I don't know, it's like the extra detail level that you need to go to as soon as you got the technology to support more ambitious things. I don't know. But I still appreciate the ambition.
Shepard was bad at drinking in Mass Effect 1. I have a screenshot. I think it was even in my review where the glass is just completely over her nose. Just not touching her lips.
But yeah, it's interesting to kind of have that stuff come out, even though none of it is really a huge surprise.
Yeah, none of it's really a surprise. There's some really nice details in it, though. Go read it.
I should do.
Big Kotaku.
The link will be in the show notes for this very episode. Moving on, we should talk about what we've been playing. Alex?
Oh, me first.
I just thought I'd jump this on you.
I've been playing Worlds Adrift. I managed to nip in on the closed beta.
Grappling hook blimp thing.
Yeah, grappling hook blimp thing. So this is an MMO made by Bossa Studios, who are behind
Surgeon Simulator
and I Am Bread. So so those are both physics games, and this is a physics-based MMO, which is kind of interesting because you don't normally see physics in an MMO.
No,
that's really hard to do in an MMO. So like it's basically you are in a sky full of floating islands, and each of these floating islands has been, or I think 95% of these floating islands in the current kind of playable area, which is quite large, have been designed by players. So I think they released a few months ago a kind of a player creation sculpting kit on Steam. So people have been making islands, while an alpha has also been going on. And they're not kind of crazy, or none of the ones I've come across have been very crazy. They're all kind of quite naturalistic. I think they've been curated, you know, as a result to fit that. Your object it's a very craft game. You're crafting, stuff. So there are trees and there are rocks on these floating islands, and you, have a kind of a breaky thing, power beamy like thing, which breaks the stuff down. Trees are nice, like when they fall down, they kind of fall in pieces and kind of branches fall off and that kind of thing, which is nice, and they kind of gather up. And then with these materials, you can then build a skyship, which is basically a physically, you know, a physics-enabled object that floats in the sky, and you can put sails on it, and that will enable it to go. And you put a steering wheel, I think that's the technical term, steering wheel, on it, and steer it around. You can later on, you can sort of, once you find the requisite kind of plans and that kind of thing and materials, you can start putting engines on them and get more and more powerful. Everything has a weight, So therefore, the way that how much it weighs will affect its kind of the way that it handles. My one, which is merely a very small hull and kind of just a sail and steering wheel, already handles like guff. But you can kind of put wings and things on them and really kind of, and you can make them really large because you can actually recruit a crew who will be able to take care of the guns.
Can you accrue a crew?
Sort of thing. You can.
Can you accrue a crew?
You can accrue a crew, and a crew of other players. So so you're kind of working together. It's really open. There aren't any quests or anything. It's all very emergent and open. So if you want to go out and be a buccaneer and steal stuff off people, you can do that, or you can maybe form a fleet and sort of do it. It's evidently looking towards Eve. But with, quite closely to Eve, Elite and that kind of thing. But in this kind of weird sort of very Ico, Shadow of the Colossus-y kind of world. So everything's very lit. In order to find, and there's a reason to explore as well, because as you explore, you can kind of research kind of trees and creatures and ruins and things, which will then accrue you knowledge points that you can then invest in expanding your knowledge tree, and therefore kind of the things that you can build. It's cool. It's pretty amazing just how much physics is going on. You have the grappling hook. That's kind of one of the first ways that you get to have going around. So you're kind of swinging around. It's really hard. I find it really hard just fall down all the time. But it's interesting and quite hard to get into because I haven't really played anything quite like it.
Can you like swing onto passing ships with the grappling hook? Have you done that?
Nope. I haven't got the skills. I would see a ship going over and I think I will miss and I will fall down to my death. Because you will, if you fall off the island, you will fall. If you fall on a surface, your character will stumble. It's very your movement is quite GTA like. So you kind of you stumble and you roll and that kind of thing. And it's not until you kind of if you stumble off an island, you will die and you'll lose everything that you've got on you.
Is it all like one big continuous space?
Yep.
Everyone's in the same.
All players are in the same space. Well, they have regional servers, but that's only for lag. It's not for anything else. So it's built on a new networking tech which is called Spatial OS, which it's made by a company called Improbable, who have just been funded to the $500 million because they're kind of making MMO software, MMO kind of networking systems, which are all about big worlds, massive physics-enabled, huge scale, permanent, pervasive worlds sort of thing. So another point of this is that if you crash your ship and as you go through, you'll continually see what players have left behind them. So if you chop down a tree or if you chop down all the trees on an island, another player coming to it will not be able to get anything until they regrow, which will take a few days. Which cool. Is, so you can kind of occupy land effectively through that kind of thing. If you crash your ship, the hull will remain there until you either drag it out or let it kind of rust down, over a week or so slowly. So they told me, I was writing about it and, the designer was telling me how during the alpha there was a sandstorm. So there are weather kind of patterns that happen, with certain areas being more prevalent than others. And a player had a very, a sky ship that he was very proud of, and he got lost in a sandstorm. So he recruited a load of other players to help him go into the sandstorm and then drag it out. And dragging out is literally attaching ropes to it.
Oh, wow.
And they, and getting very, very kind of strong ships to kind of drag his ship out and then back to a place where they could fix it up. And then he flew it for the rest of the
Stuck in sand?
I think it was literally in a storm and he couldn't for some reason get,
okay.
I think then he presumably died in the storm, respawned outside it but then didn't have, he couldn't, rebuild a strong enough ship to go back in. So it's kind of cool. What they want is like nice little sort of emergent stories like that to come from game systems, you know, from physics and from kind of coherent sort of, you know, stuff. And it's, yeah. But what comes of putting a great big world and lots of players into it and seeing what happens.
That sounds cool.
It is, you know, in effect, I found it a lot of kind of running around and kind of not knowing what I was doing, but I started to come together as you know, I've been playing, and it's one of those games that has lots of promise. Like it's much more immediate than something like Eve, much more kind of, you know, you can have fun just wandering around and sort of just chopping down trees, you know, in a way that in Eve, that level of play isn't, you know, in screens. It's cool.
Cool. Actually, does sound really good. I knew of it, but I think I was getting confused with like Guns of Icarus and other games about airships in multiplayer.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it was that sort of explory, creaty.
Yeah. I mean, you know, whether I wouldn't know yet whether, you know, a game like Guns of Icarus is like tuned for being fun to crew a ship. I don't know whether the fact that everything is physically enabled and therefore, you know, your position of your turret might feel a bit weird and it's all a bit janky. And when, you know, the cannonballs start flying, whether you'll have as much fun as you're kind of being shaken off the ship and that sort of thing. But then you can also have that sense of sort of, you know, why it's not fun. And the reason why it's not fun is part of its appeal, you know. I don't know.
That sounds cool though.
It's cool.
What's the status? Is it?
It's in closed beta, and they're kind of, it's on Steam's early access, and then, but they're releasing, I think they did a release of key, you know, release of, you know, you could buy your way onto it in a limited number last week, and presumably they'll kind of slowly expand the population. Like technically it was pretty good. Like there was a little bit of kind of sort of laggy weirdness going on. Like it's running on improbable servers, so
so they're not very likely to work.
But they, you know, one of the interesting things about it is that so one of the things with Spatial OS, which is the networking system, is that its thing is that it's made of lots of tiny little servers, effectively swarms of these servers. So when things get busy on an island, it just seamlessly assigns more processing, like more. You know, so you don't affect. They said that you can have a mass encounter of hundreds of ships, and the system will absolutely take that. What they find is that people's computers can't take drawing it all. So actually, you know, so you won't get the kind of the old MMO thing of kind of everything slowing down.
Or the Eve thing of we have to slow down time so that this can be handled. Yeah, that does sound really cool. That's interesting. That's what they're doing next as well, because it's also. It's not the logical next step after Surgeon Simulator and I Am Bread.
It's kind of ambitious.
Worlds Adrift. I'm going to say the name of the game.
Oh yeah, we
again.
should have said
Worlds Adrift.
Worlds.
So I complained on this podcast that Video Games Hot Dog sort of didn't mention the name of their assignment game at all in a couple of episodes, and they've taken this criticism seriously to heart because they've heard it from other people as well. And Zach's response to this was not to mention the game more, but to tell their listeners to send in recordings of them mentioning the name of the game they're going to discuss next week, and then play those recordings throughout the discussion incongruously at varying volumes and at varying levels of quality. And there's 25 of them or something.
There's nothing like an invented response to a criticism, is there?
I feel I've really fucked up here and made the world worse.
I was going to say, because you said adrift, I realised that the word adrift has been spoiled for me by the game Adrift, which had the audacity to adronft, as it's also known. So I didn't realise that when you said it, I heard worlds adronft.
You've been programmed.
I like to imagine that Arcane, when they're making the space sections of Prey, had oxygen capsules that you have to find to restock, and then Adrift came out and every single person complained about that mechanic and they were like, let's hastily take those out.
So that's people have, I think there's legacy stuff that people discovered.
Yeah, I mean, you find oxygen canisters, but you don't need them. Yeah. And I wonder if they just flicked a switch that says, let's just not need them.
Survival system going on.
Huh. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, right call, I think. It's I definitely think it's better without oxygen limits.
Yeah, totally.
Did you know that the eels, the eels in Prey, they were inspired by
Eels?
Ricardo Bear, who was the kind of the lead designer on it, was having a sewage system installed in his house because he lives out in the sticks in Texas, and not on the kind of the main sewage, so he has to have his own what is it called?
Septic
tank. And he learned all about the kind of the balance of kind of bacteria that you have to have in these things, and seepage and stuff like that. And he applied that and thought, oh, that'll be good for the game. So he has a system where
So wait, he has eels in his septic tank?
I'm disappointed. I would be disappointed if he doesn't.
Wow. Because I
should do as a Dishonored reference.
Yeah, because they have this recurring thing of like sea-based life gives you mana. Like in Prey, if you eat anything with fish in it, then you get psi points for it. And in System Shock, it was coffee. And I think something else. I can't remember what else, but they're sort of, I always find it fascinating in immersive sims to just eat and drink everything and see what they think the stat benefits of these things are. Because cigarettes is always -1 health point, right? You smoke a cigarette and you just lose a health point. That's it.
Which is not what a cigarette. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like, no food works this way. It's such a strange blind spot for like all immersive sims, which try and be realistic in almost all things except what food does. Like,
with the cigarettes, there should be no real effects when you do it, but then suddenly, catastrophically, you'll die.
Like, just get lung cancer 3 hours later.
You drink an entire bottle of whiskey, including the glass, from a shelf in a second. You are wobbly for 10 seconds, during which case you can't tell left from right, and then you're fine.
But so in System Shock, alcohol would, I think, maybe restore a little health, but drain your psi.
Really?
Their sort of claim. They sort of see psi as like a mental energy, I think. And so coffee, because it makes you more alert, you get more psi, and alcohol would drain your psi. I can't remember. Does it do that in Prey?
It cures terror.
Doesn't drain your psi.
Yeah. So you
just get pissed off.
Hey!
I think I'm scared of you.
Scared.
That's true to life.
Yeah. Extremely Larry. Just shouting at the technopath.
I mean, when I came to this podcast, I was full of terror, and
Indeed, yeah.
slowly it's ebbing away.
That's why we do this every week, just to ward off the technopath.
Yeah. And by terror, I mean a black border around my screen that makes it slightly harder to see things.
Yeah, terror. You know, your controls go wonky and you get loads of screen tear.
What have you been playing?
I've been playing a bit of Dead Cells, which I know you've also played.
Yeah.
I've actually been playing shitloads of Cave Blazers, which I talked about last week, and so I'll just say that continues to be good. And I keep finding interesting items in that change my play style. And then Dead Cells. So I discovered Cave Blazers, and Graham discovered Dead Cells around the same time. We both yelled at each other to play the other one, and did not play I didn't play Dead Cells for a while, and he didn't play Cave Blazers for a while. Now I'm playing Dead Cells, and he's playing Cave Blazers, and all is well with the world. They are very similar in structure. They're both roguelikes where you start actually, you might have to correct me on this. How random is it? It feels like it's randomly generated.
Then the buts are very strict. I think it's Spelunky style kind of. There are specific kind of tile sets or room sets which is stitching together.
And the difference is where Cave Blazers are very much like Spelunky, and you're a tiny little dude jumping around caves and dodging bats and stuff. This is you're fighting zombies, and it's got much more of a combat system. It's very much about I guess Dark Souls inspired, where there's a roll that makes you, I assume, invincible for that duration of it, and then but you can only use it every so often. And the first choice in the game is, do you take the shield or do you take the bow? You've got a sword already, but you switch secondary weapon do you want? And you think, okay, bow, and then you walk 10 feet and you come back and say, okay, I want the shield.
See, I did the exact opposite. I thought,
really?
Shield, and then this is really hard. I realised the bow is actually, it's really combo-y, so I realised that combat is all about, 2 sword slashes and then a bow shot, and because they're stunned from the swords, you can put them into a lock stun, and then you've got time to ratchet up a shot.
So what perspective is this controlled from? Is it isometric? Is it
this is side on? It's very Castlevania-y, Metroidvania-y. And that scale as well. Your character is kind of, I don't know, a couple of inches tall, depending on the size of your
bigger
screen.
Than a Spelunky man.
Yeah. Many
smaller
Spelunky
than a big Mario.
I think I'd say he's a double Mario.
2 Marios. We've got 2 Marios.
And you find random stuff, but I haven't played enough to really get a handle on what that is, because I found like a thing that says it makes your skills better, and I'm like, I don't have any skills. And then
okay.
Because I think I've now got to the point where I have had something in one of my skill slots, but then I died, and it was a flashbang.
Yep.
But at the time I got a boost to my skills. It didn't have any skills. And then I've also found, I feel like I haven't really found items that often, but I found blueprints for items. And then when you go to some special guy, you can turn in your blueprints for items.
No.
Well, okay, so the first time,
No.
I found a blueprint, and then it said, "Oh, take this to the collector or whatever in order to unlock this." And I did, and it unlocked it, and it also gave me one. It was like a blood sword or something. And the blood sword just popped out of him. And so I took the blood sword, and then I carried on, and I had a good time.
That might be the first time.
And then because then next time when I was next there, I spent. Oh yeah, so you need. I think the way it works is you need a blueprint to like unlock the blueprint, and then you need to spend dead cells, right, to actually get it? Or to upgrade it, maybe?
Yeah, it's up for upgrades. So as you're running around, there are various places where you'll find items in chests and that sort of thing. I don't think they're locked. I think you have access to all of them, potentially have access to all of them from the start of the game, as long as you kind of get far enough. You have the potential to get them. And then when you find a blueprint, oh man, this is interesting.
So is a blueprint like you skip spending the cells?
So I think the blueprint allows you, so the world is divided into zones, sort of Metroidy.
It feels like a start of a philosophical treatise, like David Hume wrote.
Let's go back to the first principles. What are we at?
The world is divided into zones. A man is a miserable pile of secrets.
When you come to the end of it, there are the kind of exit points, and as you go from one zone to another, so you're in the kind of one world, and then you go to the old sewers or whatever it is, and then in between the two, you'll meet a character who will allow you to upgrade items using cells, and you get cells for killing enemies. They will and you'll collect them. When you die, you will lose all the cells you've accrued to that point. But you can spend them between levels, between zones, to upgrade items that you may or may not find on any given playthrough. So your blood sword, and then you're I think that once you get a blueprint, you can then start investing cells in that thing, and it gets more and more powerful, and when you find it, and then you're also picking up money. When you die, initially I think you lose all your money, and then you can also invest your cells in losing less of your money.
And the upgrades that you invest cells in, those persist over multiple lives?
Yep. Yeah. So that's the kind of the persistent development side of the game.
I see. I found like a door where I had to pay 1,500 to open it, and I tried attacking it, and it took damage, and I'm like, and so I kept attacking it, and it took a while, but I broke down the door, and then it said, "You have angered the gods," and the next, what was the counter on it? It was like the next 10 enemies, or the next 10 something, for that duration. Any hit you take will kill you. Yeah. And until you kill 10 enemies, any hit you take will kill you. And if you can kill 10 without taking a hit, then you'll be fine. Yeah, first enemy I encountered killed me.
That as well. Oh, you got on the first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a cool idea, though.
The combat's tight, though. Like, it's very tight, but it's...
Yeah, it's interesting for me because I love Spelunky, I love Cave Blazers, and I don't really like Dark Souls. I've tried a couple of times to get into it, and can't get a handle on the combat. And this is kind of very Dark Souls inspired combat in a Spelunky format. And I kind of like it when it's easy, and then the harder it gets, the more I have to engage with the timing of rolls and blocks and stuff, and the less I like that. I think it's a very timing based system, and I think the more hardcore you get in that, the less I get out of it. But then it might just be that maybe if I get better at it, I'll enjoy it more.
I think if you have that run where you have like a flashbang and you have like a freeze grenade and you've got your blood sword, and you can have just that run where you just feel like you're just walking through the enemies, and then it starts piling enemies on you and you get an elite enemy on you and you die. I
kept finding a bunch of interesting things to put in. I had like a sword and a shield, and that was working well for me. And then I kept finding interesting things that could go in one of those two slots. But it's like, I can't give it my sword because I need to deal damage. And if I give it my shield, I always regret it. I'm always like, fucking hell, I could have blocked that. I could have blocked that. I could have blocked that.
What I find is hard to, because you assign those weapons to the button that you want, which means that if you decide you're not going to have a sword, or you decide to put the short sword on a different button, you're going to remap your mental kind of controls, and I found that really difficult.
We have the problem with the heat signature. You can assign anything to left or right mouse that's in your inventory, but when you start a character, we just set some defaults because we don't want the buttons to do nothing. And if on the last character you were playing, you had like a melee weapon in your left and a range weapon in your right, and then our default is range weapon in the left, you're like, what the fuck? The game's broken. This is bullshit.
What, have you got a solution? Is it to
nope.
just
I mean, we can.
The last setting.
One solution is we just don't have assignments, because we already have to deal with that case anyway in case you've thrown away the thing you're using. And in that case, when you press a button it's not assigned to anything, we pause the game and show you the inventory menu and you can assign something. It's a bit jarring. You don't expect that to happen when you press a button, but it's better than the wrong thing happening, I guess.
What's the art style like for Dead Cells? I'm saying as a guy who knows nothing about it, really.
Pixel.
Yeah, it's pixel. It's kind of blurry, I find. It's sort of, everything has a kind
Spooky
of smudge to
pixel.
it, where there's not a lot of fine detail.
Yeah. I think there's quite a lot of kind of colour washes going over the top sort of thing. I mean, I like it a lot, actually. Although, it does one of my things that I don't like with Pixel, where you've got one scale of pixels, over the
Good
screen.
job, John's not here.
And then there's like a sort of, they'll have like an information screen with a different scale of pixels. It's, no.
Somewhere John Roberts is shivering.
I also, so I've been watching more StarCraft, the GSL, and some good stuff has been happening there. I was really pleased to see, it's extremely rare for anyone non-Korean to be in the tournament at all. And there have been 2 non-Korean players this season in the round 32. I won't say how well they've done, but the general stereotype that Koreans are really good at StarCraft remains true. And one of those games, with, who was she against? It was Scarlet was the, Canadian player.
Yeah.
And
I've heard of Scarlet.
Can't remember. Sorry?
I've heard of Scarlet. I don't know very much about StarCraft, and I've actually heard of Scarlet.
Yeah, she's, I think, the only female programmer to have made it into the GSL.
That's right. There's a New Yorker feature about her.
Right.
Anyway, sorry.
She's really good, it turns out. I can't remember who she was fighting, but she plays without game sound. Because last time she played in the GSL, she found that the noise of the crowds and stuff drowned out the game sound, and it threw her off. And so she's been practicing ever since with no game sound. She doesn't listen to it at all. And to keep with that in the tournament itself, she doesn't even put her headphones in. She's just guessing. And then, so I don't know StarCraft well enough. When someone's targeting a nuke on you, is there any audio cue for that?
I don't know if, as in, that you hear as well as your opponent. So, because there is the nuclear launch detected thing, but...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because, she falls prey to one of the most decisive nukes in StarCraft history. It's just, I think the commentators were more blown away by it than I was, because looking at the big mess of units, I didn't totally register what had died, but it was like all the valuable units in one nuke. And StarCraft's brilliant at having these mechanics where something dramatic is going to happen, and if you're the person doing it, or if you're an observer, you can see it about to happen, and if you're not, You either have absolutely no idea, or you're checking for it and you're about to stop it, and in which case it will do nothing at all. So like burrowed banelings and widow mines and nukes. And you can just see, like, she doesn't see it coming, she doesn't move her units, and then also she just at the last minute moves a bunch of units into it, and it's just the absolute worst possible time. But they are really good games from both sides. And then another game with Bjorn and a Zerg whose name I can't remember, in which he masses Reapers. I am always rooting for the Zerg in any Zerg versus anything game, and particularly in Zerg versus Terran, because traditionally Zergs have kind of been the underdog. They kind of get beaten up by Terrans a lot, and also I just like the more unconventional race. So usually I'm kind of cheering for the Zerg, but Bjorn is an incredible micro player. He just has control over units that just lets him do things that no one else can do, and just defies the logic of, commentators are always saying like, well, clearly he's going to lose this fight because he hasn't got enough, and then he just takes it somehow.
Micros it.
And they were getting really excited about the fact with his first 2 Reapers, he killed a queen, which I don't know the significance of that, but apparently that never happens. And then he just masses Reapers, gets like 12 of them or something, and keeps denying hatcheries so the Zerg can't get up a new base and build their economy, and in the process killing all the Zerglings that the Zerg sends after him. And you can tell it's going really well. He's also throwing grenades, which is like something that wasn't in StarCraft 2 at launch, I don't think, but they can bounce units around, and that gives Reapers like a much higher ceiling on how good they can be if you micro them perfectly, but it's super micro intensive. You've got to really be concentrating on where that goes and where it pushes the enemies and where it pushes your own units and all that stuff. And he does it really, really well, and it's beautiful to watch, and you're kind of, it's amazing to see how well he does with it. And then they bring up the units killed tab, and it's 2 Reapers have died, 68 Zerglings. It's just been a complete fucking massacre. And that's just the game. It just never goes beyond that, because he's done so much damage with just perfect control. And that was really interesting to watch, because usually it's a mix of micro and macro, and you'll see games where like micro probably won that, like it was 60-40, but the 40 player had the better micro and turned it around somehow. But this is just a case where it's just like, this absolutely should not be working, but he's just so fucking good at it that it just works.
Rad. He was the first person to win, I think, GSL. I'm not sure which one. Might have been one of the other Korean leagues without a team.
Oh, right.
With no team support. Bjorn last year. That's one of the 2 big kind of surprise stories out of Korea last year. The other was American winning Korea, which was the other surprising thing that happened last year. But yeah, like kind of nuts. He kind of he's sort of credited for one of the reasons that I think the Korean StarCraft scene underwent such a huge overhaul last year with the sort of team structures being challenged, because he just came along with I think he was banned at one point for cheating, came back from nowhere and won without a team, which no one has ever done.
Wow. They keep referring to the 4 horsemen of Terran. There are apparently 4 Terrans who just kind of dominate, and I don't know who they are because they never list them, but he's one of them apparently.
Yeah.
He's the first one who's come up since I've been watching, where he's one of those 4, so I don't know who the others are.
Rad.
But also, I didn't finish. I'm very close to finishing, I think, the Protoss campaign and single player, and really enjoying that still. There was so the last mission I did, I thought was going to be the last mission because it's very much geared like the last mission. The whole thrust of the plot has been kind of bringing together the various factions of Protoss and uniting them, getting them on your side. And I've done that. And then there's this really cool mission, actually. Would have been very happy for it to be the last one, where there's some kind of like weird evil shards that are spawning enemies, and you're being attacked by enemies on a regular basis, but your primary objective is to take out all these different shards. Each one you take out makes the next ones harder and bolsters the enemy's forces, so it kind of scales up. And then at the same time, your optional objectives, instead of being to gather some resource that gives you some metagame advantage, which is what most of them have been until now, is all of the different factions have like a site that they could enter from, and you got to go and destroy a base there. Like there's a Zerg base and you got to wipe it out. And once you've done that, that faction will build a base there. And then from then on, they will send out waves of their specialty units on a regular basis. So like one of them's Dark Templars, who are the invisible ones. And so every like 2 minutes, the Dark Templar base now will send out a bunch of invisible dudes, and I can go and join on with my forces and push with them. And I think there's 4 different factions who've kind of allied with by that point, and so you can decide for yourself how much you want to push on the primary objective, how much do you want to build your allies and have them all help you. And because they all have different units and different specialities, that's just really cool to see, and really like feels like mechanics tying in with the plot. Really felt representative of what presumably the plot was doing. I don't know because I skipped all the cutscenes. It seemed like a great finale to whatever the hell the plot was.
Are you into the epilogue bit?
So I've just done that mission and I haven't. I was expecting the whole game to end and it didn't end. So I don't know what's next.
Okay, because that game's long.
Okay, the mission before that was crazily difficult. It was one of a series of ones where you just have a couple of hero units and nothing else. Which usually I'm not a huge fan of, but these are sort of coming at, I don't know, the climax of a whole bunch of more macro-focused missions, so I was kind of interested. And they are different, like each one of them, because the hero's abilities are different. Whatever the abilities are, you're going to be using them 1,000 times in that mission, and so one of them's like, one of them's really good at damage, one of them's good at, like, teleporting, and then there's another mission just about one that can steal enemy units, so you can just, like, hack robotic units, basically. And then there's one where you are trying to run away from like a miasma that's chasing you. And there's all these different like hordes of enemies along the way. And you can kind of accumulate units a little bit, but you're mostly just relying on one hero who has to live. And he has a healing power, but it's on quite a long cooldown. And so there's just a time limit to everything you do. And I just got completely destroyed by the time limit the first time. And so the second time, the only way, like I was just not even close to being done with like the third of like 10 groups of enemies when I got caught by the miasma. And so the next time I just did a kind of a speedrun type approach where my guy just like ran past everyone. He has a teleport ability, so if he got stuck, I just teleport him ahead a little bit. And he was constantly losing health and on the brink of death, but he could heal himself just fast enough. All my supporting units, I just left them behind to die. And then got up to the point where they give you Dark Templars, who are the invisible guys. And I got to that point before, but there was no chance of doing it because I had no time left. And this time I got there with loads of time. And if you have loads of time, you can use Dark Templars to take things out that can't see invisible things. And they don't take any damage. Your guy doesn't take any damage. And it's great. But that's just they clearly want you to do that because like they actually have a voice line about like, oh, my Dark Templars will handle the Nidus worms for you. Which you have to go and tell them to do. But that only works if you have time to have your guy hang back. If your guy goes in with them, then he takes all of the fire and will die really quickly. And then the Dark Templars are no help. So you have to hang him back. And if you don't have time, then you just can't do that. And it seemed like everything else has been really easy. I haven't been turning up the difficulty because I like it to be easy, but I've been noticing like, boy, I really don't struggle with any of this. And then this one was just brutal.
Yeah, I can't actually remember when the campaign that is. It's been a while, but...
So the other thing is there's like a big list of units and I've been unlocking variants of each type and there's 3 variants of all of them. I've unlocked everything now. And I don't have disruptors and I don't have oracles, who are 2 units that I know from the multiplayer. So I'm wondering if they don't
think they're in it.
Yeah.
If I remember right, I don't think they are.
It's really different. Not just in terms of like you can upgrade stalkers in different ways, but the carriers, tempests, and motherships are all variants of the same thing in this. So you can only have one of those 3 things. And in multiplayer, you have all 3 of those. And they serve different roles, but you've got to pick which one you want. And Void Rays, which I love, and most of my motivation in this campaign was getting to Void Rays. Once I got them and unlocked various variants of them, usually a Void Ray is an air unit that charges up as it's attacking. And its beam gets more and more powerful the more it charges. One of the variants you unlock, the beam, instead of getting more powerful, it spreads to more enemies. So it's like a chain lightning thing. That's really cool. And then after that, I unlocked one, like both those are pretty good. So I was like, didn't really think the third variant would be anything I'd use. Third variant is a completely different ship that just cloaks everything around it. And doesn't cloak itself, but cloaks everything else. And that's not super great in itself, but once you unlock carriers are, a bit like a Void Ray where it can attack air and ground, and it's really, really powerful. And then if you mass it, you'll just have a great thing. And then, if you also have a cloak ship with it that cloaks them all, carriers also repair each other. And I've got a global passive ability that repairs the 3 most damaged things that are mechanical, which they are. And they're Protoss, so they have shields, which regenerate. And they're invisible because of this thing. And they're flying, so half the Zerg units can't target them anyway. And so for that last mission, I just had this amazing, floating invisible death cloud. All I built was carriers, basically. I had 200 supply of carriers and these invisible things, and 70% of the enemy units couldn't target them because they're invisible or flying, and it was just glorious.
Rad. Awesome. I'm glad you're getting so much out of that game, because it's really good. They did a really good job of building 2 really good games and bolting them together, basically.
Yeah, it still has a really good balance of like base building and getting to do your own thing versus making each mission different. Like, the differences are just about the level I want them to be, where, yes, my challenge is different here, but I still get to build a base. I still get to decide what I want to make.
Awesome.
What have you been playing, Chris?
So, I've been playing 2 things, but the one that's very relevant to the discussion we just had is I've been playing loads of Dawn of War 3. We lost a bit of chat on the pod that had some memory-related audio loss issues about my experience with it, but it just had a really big patch. I basically just played multiplayer. I played like half the campaign and just stopped to play multiplayer alone. And it just had a really big patch, like its first big balance patch. And I remember when I spoke about it the first time on the pod and I was starting out multiplayer, I had that nice feeling, that kind of honeymoon period feeling. And I think I acknowledged it as such at the time of, this feels very loose and sort of improvisational, and there isn't like necessarily a right way to play, and all those things are incorrect. There is a very correct way to play Dawn of War. And it does have quite a rigid meta in some ways. I think they're struggling a little bit to find the sort of balance sweet spot for multiplayer, to the extent that the patch they released doesn't affect the campaign. All of the changes they've made to the same units, and the differences aren't as pronounced as they are in StarCraft, for example, between what you're doing in the campaign and what you're doing in multiplayer. They're sort of Eldar, I think, were hugely ascendant when the game came out. Now Space Marines are ascendant. I'm finding it, I've got I can't stop playing it, which is a good sign. But I feel like I'm sort of falling out of love with it because I'm getting out of the period of fun experimentation, enjoying the spectacle. Because I do think it's a spectacular looking game. Like when it kicks into gear, it really does look great, and it kind of has a sense of scale that I think most games don't have, because it has the relic thing of you're building squads, not individual soldiers. So you're always dealing in multiple big groups of people. So the size of the battles feels a lot larger, but at the same time, it also has unlike, more like Dawn of War or less like Company of Heroes, it has a fiction that enables it to be sort of big, spectacular sci-fi units going at it rather than like men in khaki hiding behind a burnt out car, right? Like, it really does have a cool sense of spectacle, and that comes across in multiplayer, particularly because it's most, commonly played 2v2 or 3v3, where you start to get those huge clashes. And I think the reasons that I'm starting to get a little bit colder on it are, some of them are the game's fault and some of them aren't. One of them is that I don't know how big the player base is, even soon after launch. It doesn't feel huge. I mean, you can get a game relatively quickly, but the matchmaking feels like it's sort of all over the place as a consequence. Like, so actually, I don't know fully what to credit this to. Sometimes it just feels like a stomp one way or the other. Like it's very one-sided. Other times it can feel really nice and close, but, games can turn quite quickly, and that can be unsatisfying. What's really interesting about it is, so I think as I played more of it, and I think partly this is just me getting better at it and getting to the stage now, as I've spoken about on the podcast before, I think, where I'm out of the matchmaking doesn't know what to do with me phase and into the, if I wanted to keep getting good at this, I now have to really seriously learn. Like I've had to do the thing of like looking at the forums now to learn openings. Yeah. I've had to start caring about how to win the mirror as Space Marines, because I have one opening for anything other than Space Marines and one opening for Space Marines, because Space Marines can do the same things I can. And unfortunately, like, as a faction, you pick like a particular hand of elite units that you'll be able to call down with those elite points during the game. And you pick like a hand of passive abilities that you'll also have called doctrines. And it feels at the moment that there's like a correct choice there. Like there's not a lot of, it's a sort of a sigh of relief when you see what your opponent has and they don't have like two. There's basically two that feel mandatory for Space Marines, and then the third one is kind of just for fun, like a flavor pick, but like that's not a great place for the game to be in. You want it to be interesting, where you go like, oh, the guy doesn't have that ability. Like the two that feel really mandatory at the moment is, one is one that makes tactical Marines, which is like the basic Space Marines, really fast when they're out of combat. They can just run places, which is just really useful in a game that's a lot about territory control. You can just get places really, really quickly, and out of the gate as well. That kicks in the moment the game begins, so you'll be getting your first tactical Marines places faster than the enemy can. which is good in everything except the Space Marine mirror match because the other guy always has that. So what's interesting about the Space Marine mirror match has become the thing you can do against every other race doesn't work. And the other side of it is the thing that makes Space Marine Flamers really good, because out of the gate, Space Marines seem to lose to like every other faction's basic infantry, which is a bit weird when you consider the fiction. But as soon as they get upgraded, they're hugely powerful. And so that upgrade is something else everyone else sort of seems to want to rush. And so there's a sort of strange, slightly out of character kind of mind games with how that fits together. The other side of it though is that it's in like, I'm starting to see now like that game has an enormous skill ceiling, like a StarCraft style skill ceiling. You mentioned it with grenades earlier on Reapers. Like everything in Dawn of War is that basically, because like shitloads of things in Dawn of War cause knockback or stun if used properly. And that includes like abilities on characters, like the Space Marine Scout has a stun grenade. The Eldar, Dark Avengers which is their basic infantry, have a grenade that does the same thing. But so do like, for example, Space Marine drop pods coming down also causes a knockback, which is one thing. Like, you know, chain disrupting an enemy unit is how you beat something, you know, you're not supposed to be able to beat technically is not just throwing all your stuns on them at once, but timing each individual unit and positioning your own units so they're less vulnerable to that kind of thing, not grouping up, which takes a lot of execution. Micro, yeah. It takes a lot of micro. But the other thing is that, the punishment for being interrupted is massive. So that if you get stunned as your guy is throwing a grenade, for example, or about to use the flamethrower, which is all on, these are abilities on like hefty cooldowns, like 1 minute cooldowns in a lot of cases, which it feels like an eternity in a fast paced RTS. If you get like interrupted out of the startup animation, that cooldown is on now. You cannot do that thing. So getting those things interrupted is massive. And that, as a result, I think there is presumably at the top level, a level of the game where people can see those kinds of things coming. And I don't think you can feint anything, but you can, sort of anticipate the kinds of interruptions your opponent might be able to bring into play and work around them. At the lower end, I think you probably don't even notice because people aren't even using their active abilities. You're just smashing armies into each other. I think I'm in the sort of awkward intermediate stage now where both players are using their army abilities relatively frequently and basically correctly, but probably not optimally efficiently, which means that a lot of fights come down to who gets that key interrupt off first, which can feel a little bit random, and it's devastating. Like, you get one of those things wrong and your army is gone. Like, it's done. Like, you cannot come back from that. And then the game is probably over. And that's pretty brutal, actually. Like, yeah. And when it goes, I think it's most pronounced in 1v1s where the advantage to pulling something like that off versus how devastating it is to have it pulled off against you is pretty much everything. Like, and sometimes it works. Like, it works really well. Like, the last game I played was spectacularly close and felt like a meaningful, the kind of thing you want an RTS game to be about. It was like a meaningful back and forth tussle for all of the territory in the middle of the map, with basically none of the combat happening anywhere near either of our bases. Like, all of the different resource points changed hands throughout the game. It wasn't just that we set up on our opposing halves, built big armies and threw them at each other. Like, we're each having to like feint and, you know, fake out attacks and gather up units and use them to push places we knew the enemy couldn't be because they just committed somewhere else. And when you time stuff right, it feels amazing. Like, it's such a cool, cause like, so for example, against Space Marines, you can see their drop pods coming down. You can see the timer on the ground. And, there's like the basic Space Marine elite unit is called the Death Watch Kill Team, which is like some elite Space Marines, basically.
The Death Watch Kill Team?
Yeah. It's the Kill Watch Death Team. I said that with a straight face because I've been so steeped in Warhammer 40k recently that, like, I just need to bat an eyelid. Like, the Skull Watch Skull Friends come down. And they are like really cheap as hero units go, and they're pretty good and they're quite reliable. So people often bring them down because they just need a unit quickly. But they can get fucked up very quickly by special weapons. And I had like a dreadnought with a huge plasma gun, which has like a manually aimed plasma shot, and just did the sort of, I guess it was a little inkling of what you can do if you really know what you're doing at a consistent level. I haven't pulled this off before, but saw the timer, like the 3, 2, 1, kind of gauge the travel time for the projectile from the, dreadnought effect successfully, so that the huge kind of like plasma grenade thing flew through into the drop pod as the drop pod opened. and just wrecked this entire elite unit before it even left the drop pod. And that fight was just over for that guy then, because that was his entire gambit. And even though he dropped the drop pod to stun some of my units, the guys inside were basically dead before they left. So my units stand back up, kill them, and then just move on. And his whole kind of plan has fallen apart. That stuff when it happens is really good. But I remember when the game was still, before it came out and Tom Senior had been playing it in preview, he said he thinks it's too complicated. And I think I might be getting towards agreeing with him. Because
that was something that last pod I was on, you were sort of saying that kind of, that is more straightforward than something like,
I think
StarCraft. And then as I've been playing the campaign, it's all about those secondary abilities.
Yeah. I think it's, there are things about it that I do prefer to StarCraft in terms of I think StarCraft could sometimes hide some of its complexity. And it's not necessarily as obvious how you optimally use those units, how you stagger step with units in order to get the right shots off. People have sort of mastered StarCraft at a mathematical level way above what a war looks like, right? Like it's a dance of kind of mad little micro movements that optimize the amount of damage someone will take while they're turning around. Like this doesn't feel like that. It feels a bit chunkier and more obvious, like why things have the effect that they do. And when you do something good, or even when you're beaten by something that's just clearly like, I was outplayed there, it does actually feel pretty good. It's not like someone just engaged with the metagame at a level you don't understand and therefore has more units than you for reasons you don't quite fathom, although that does happen. It's like, oh man, he positioned his drop pod, because the drop pod, like the knockback is like a radius. So if you drop it in the middle of a unit, they'll go in 360 degrees, which is actually not necessarily optimal because you might want them to all go in the same direction. So you might want to offset it slightly to try and punt them. And if you can punt them correctly, you can sort of take a blob unit and sort of almost flatten it into a line by doing like a radial knockback in one corner of it. And if you flatten them into a line and then have flamers lined up, you can just flame across it. And that's like extremely high level Dawn of War where it's like, oh shit, that was awesome. Like, you did that. I deserve this. One thing is though that I think when you play it 2v2 or 3v3, having another player can soften
your losses.
Yeah. If both of you get outplayed, then it's over. But if one of you gets outplayed and the other one is still building, like one player can basically sacrifice themselves to build time for the other one to build up, and you share kind of resource points and things. So it feels kind of nice. I know I still really like it, but it's at that time, it's gotten hard. It's gotten into the hard sort of thinky, I need to actually put some work in if I want to keep winning. Cause I had like, and this is the thing that always happens. I'm now shrinking back down towards a 50% win rate. Whereas I was on like an 85% win rate for the first 15 hours. And now it's like, oh God, like now it's really difficult. And that's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination.
But if you don't have a player base.
Yeah. But also it's that classic thing of like, if you don't necessarily like have time to invest in like a strategy game seriously, like maybe my time with it is over now because I'm into this is now a commitment to getting good as opposed to just a fun half hour playing Space Marines, you know? Like, interesting. Like, cause now I can feel like, cause it doesn't really have like it has a leaderboard, but it doesn't have like a robust ranked system or anything. So there's none of that kind of StarCraft, like what ladder am I on kind of journey. It is just getting better in abstract to this particular.
That's interesting because it's not necessarily your own time, but it's the fact that it's not giving you a structure to pull you into that kind of high
apart from the
play.
global leaderboard, which is a bigger, challenge than I think I'm probably up for, really. So yeah, I do like it. Like I think they've made a really interesting strategy game, but there's, I don't know, just a strange one in some ways. Like, maybe it would be fun if I had more people to play it with. Like I don't have anyone that I buddy with or anything to play multiplayer. I just go with randoms. And maybe that's not ideal.
What are they like?
People pretty nice. Like I've never had any abuse. Like it's been pretty solid. People ping things when they want things. They say, what drop pods they've got ready, that kind of thing. It's cool. It's all right. The other thing I've been playing, which is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, but I want to talk about because we've not really talked about it, and it's the big thing all the kids are into. So it's probably going to stop being the big thing all the kids are into as soon as I said this. Is and you have to shout this, unfortunately. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, whatever it's called.
It's funny. I'm amused by you see people tweeting that they've been playing it, and they are like us kind of people, like the old men, not the
So it's huge on Twitch,
kids.
which is why you don't notice, because who's got time, right?
Yeah.
So it's huge on Twitch, and you can see why. But actually, I really like the idea of battle royale games. Like H1Z1, King of the Hill, and The Culling, I think I spoke about on the podcast previously. I think Hunger Games Battle Royale is a perfect setup for a multiplayer video game. And I really like DayZ at its peak as well, which is part of this same sort of arc in recent shooter design, at least. And this is absolutely that. It's an early access, costs 25 quid-ish, so it's sort of premium early access. Hugely successful already, as you might expect. But because it also belongs to to some extent to the janky survival game kind of style of early access, there's almost like I almost have an inherent kind of distrust of it. Because it's actually quite a good looking game in terms of its environments. It's very Armor, right? Like it's extremely Armor. I think it's based on Armor. It looks like Armor, feels like Armor, quacks like an Armor. It looks pretty nice, except all of the kind of character models they're not bad, but they're just sort of like, faceless Gennaro people occupying a stretch of sort of an island that is also somehow Eastern Europe, for the purpose of shooting each other in a kind of Hunger Games adventure. It's basically DayZ. It's basically the things people ended up actually doing in DayZ, not the kind of mad emergent thing everyone thought DayZ was going to be. Like, people thought that DayZ would be a game about crazy emergent adventures where you got kidnapped by people and they stole your beans or whatever. Which is amazing because it happens exactly once. And then eventually that player base realized that the most efficient thing to do was to shoot people and then take their stuff and not have an actual interaction with them.
There was no real contest.
Yeah, there was no real decision there. I remember having talking to Dean Hall about the future of DayZ, where it was going to be all about sort of a Mad Max style wasteland where people would create their own bunkers to survive in and have their own like scientific labs for like understanding things. Nope. What people wanted was a King of the Hill game, basically, which is why H1Z1 ended up doing what it's done. And this is basically that. But actually, that's kind of perfect because it's sort of like a DayZ game that's over in half an hour.
You do get those standoffs as well. Where
you do.
You don't want to die, and you kind of
people do open. I've never seen two people who are both armed have anything other than a shooting match. Like, it's a shooter. It's not. There's no talking, like, except with your team if you're with the team. But the way it works, I'm impressed by its network technology, actually, talking about kind of like big multiplayer games, is you queue up for a game, you load onto a little island where no one can die, but everyone's shooting guns at each other anyway, and it slowly just loads until there are like 100 people on this island jumping around in their pants, like just bouncing around, being in pants, looking janky, enjoying kind of Armor style, dodgy, rolling about, wonky runs, silly shit that you can do. Then when everyone's ready, it kicks you into a passenger jet, not a passenger jet, like what they call it, big cargo planes, big military cargo plane kind of thing. Amusingly, if anyone managed to set themselves on fire while they were on the island at the start, you don't die. The particle effect for them being on fire continues, and so the plane has fire trailing from it based on whoever's on fire. And at that point, you can actually press the button switch to first person and just look down this endless row of identical kind of like gap-adorned Gennaro douches kind of like lining the inside of this plane. The plane crosses the island in a straight line, but that straight line is randomly generated, so it doesn't always cross the island the same way, which is kind of important because it changes what places you might end up beginning in, and also like what places are likely to not have any players in near the start. As soon as you figure out what the island's sort of direction is, then as soon as you're over the island, you can jump out of the plane at any point. So you pick, and there's some strategy in that in terms of if you go over a city, it's quite likely a lot of other players. If you go straight away, there's likely a lot of players just hammering the F key like until they can get out of the plane as soon as possible. And then there's a reasonably good skydiving bit where you start off skydiving and you can tilt back and forwards and try and go faster and slower and slow yourself down and steer a bit. And then you can open your parachute at any point. But there's a minimum altitude where you have to open your parachute. And that brings you down to the ground. And then it is a game about DayZ style, looking at a load of houses, going, are any of the doors open? If any of the doors are open, a player's been in there, so A, there's probably nothing there, and B, they might already have it and they might kill me with it. So you run around, you find some houses, you open those doors, you loot guns and things. You find guns and gear at a much greater rate than DayZ, and there's no food, really. There's like energy drinks, but they have like a buff effect. It's all game stuff. It's not, you're finding bandages, weapon attachments, guns, melee weapons, motorcycle helmets to protect your head, like flak jackets. Unlike the culling, it doesn't have like a crafting system, which I thought didn't work at all, like punching trees to make a bow. It's all about run, find a gun, and then very soon into the match, you've always got a counter in the top right of how many players are left. When you die, you just go back to the main menu and queue for another one.
All right.
You're out. You can carry watching, but you can only see the place where you died.
Oh. You can't follow the players.
I don't think so.
I suppose that's a griefing thing, isn't it?
It's kind of the idea as well, is that you're just out. Like that was your run. You're out. And then after a while, the game will kind of draw a circle on the map, like initially a big one, like covering maybe a quarter of the island. And there's a force field that gradually approaches and converges on that circle. And so that ushers all the players into that point. And that just keeps shrinking as the game goes on until it's like a 20-foot square slice of ground when there's only 3 people left at that initial 100. And there are vehicles, buggies and bikes and jeeps and stuff. And there are occasionally bomb zones where a certain area of the map is designated in red, and it just starts blowing up. You hear the sound of like a plane going over, but mostly it just starts blowing up. And weirdly, like, I'm not even cynical about this kind of thing, but actually it all works really, really well.
Yeah.
Like, when I started playing it, I think it was my 4th game that I got a kill, basically. Like, you die really easily, and that's why I think it's important that you can go back to the menu and just queue for a different one. Yeah. So it's a very hot and cold game where you can't really sit down and plan, like, I'll just have a 15-minute game of this, because you might have a 3-minute game of that, where you land next to somebody and you just punch each other and one of you dies first. Or you can have like a half-hour, 45-minute tensest game of your life game of it. And also it's a game that often ends in like a total anticlimax, because you often don't see the bullet that kills you. Like, it's just someone else got a bead on you, you never saw them, you hear a bang, and then it's over. However long you've been playing it, it's just over now. I'd really like to play it with people. I'm going to do that, and that's, I think, how I see it. When you see people playing on videos or on streams, they often have like a posse that they go in with, and there's like a team mode designed for that. I've only been playing it solo, so it's a very specific experience of it. But actually, like, I think what impresses me about it is that I worry with these things that they're just a kind of mad kind of Skinner box, that it's sort of like a roguelike FPS where you load it up, you just see what happens, and then, you go back to it. But actually, like, there's quite a lot of strategy and enough elements that you do meaningfully get better at it, and you can get meaningfully different situations out of the sort of the natural circumstances of what happens in those initial minutes. So there's a nice rhythm to, like, the first couple of minutes don't really matter, because if you die, you start a new game. If you get great stuff, then you want to protect it. So the stakes get really high really quickly, but the stakes don't almost start high. Like when you're just not a naked man, but a man in a t-shirt and jeans falling out of a plane, you got nothing to lose really. As soon as you get into that first building and there's something precious in it, like a great assault rifle with a scope or something like that, which will help you in lots of different circumstances, you want to get out of it. Sometimes you'll find something weird will happen, like there's like an island with an airport on it that's sort of detached from the main island but connected to it by a couple of bridges. And I've parachuted into that with like 6 other players at one point. And then the zone you have to get to where the island's going to shrink, where the force field's going to shrink to, just happened to be the other side of the island, which meant we were all fucked unless one of us can find a car. Because you won't be able to run it. Like, it's too far, it's kilometers. But if you get a car, you can just about make it. And then, like, everyone sees there's like a buggy out in the open, but no one wants to be the one that runs for it. But then that area is also designated as a bomb zone. So everything just goes mad. And I didn't end up surviving that, but it was a great moment of just like, I only had a crossbow, which takes an age to reload. and just the sort of the mad dash of like people just going for it. I've had the one where I've managed to find a bike by a miracle right as the force field was catching up with me and just drive ahead of it, like seeing other players just sprinting. Because if you have anything with an engine, they make a lot of noise. People will see where you're coming from, but they're just sprinting away from the force field as well. And I'm riding my stupid motorbike with an empty sidecar, just like over hills, just trying to escape this thing. And cool moments. I had one of my favorite openings I've never won one. I've come top 15 a couple of times now, and it gets really tense towards the end in a really cool way because it really matters at that point. One of the coolest openings I've had was making an interesting strategic decision, because sometimes you want to come down as fast as possible. Like you want to skydive with your head pointing at the ground and then parachute basically straight down onto the ground, because you can't dive from the parachute. At least I've never seen it happen. So that you can get into the buildings first and find the best stuff. But the thing is, parachutes are very visible. So if you come down second, you can often see where people have gone. And I opened my parachute probably way too early and just spent a fucking million years
feeling like
very slowly like orbiting, coming down above this town. And I could already see like players below me, like running in and out of houses, shooting each other, punching each other on the ground, like, going through all the stages of life. And like I was sort of slowly orbiting down from the sky. And one guy got a buggy and drove it like through the town and then stopped at this building at the edge of town. And I saw him get out of the buggy and go into the building. And I managed to bring my parachute down directly next to his car, get in his car and fuck off. And he could, I just remember sort of like looking behind to see him run out the building and start firing shots above me, like, you fucking asshole. And that was one of the ones I came top 15. Basically, because I got his car at the beginning, I suddenly had that freedom to go completely off-piste, like away from the direction that the plane took. So away from anywhere players are likely to have been able to get on foot, and just loot a whole town to myself, get really geared up, and then drive to the middle of the circle that the map will shrink around. And it doesn't, to its credit, it doesn't shrink consistently around that center. So once it forms its first, once it forms its first circle, it will then form another circle within that circle, but it won't necessarily be in the center of it. So you can't know the exact center point, which is good, because otherwise that would be a battleground from the beginning, right? Because if you just occupy that, then you win. Got all my gear, found somewhere pretty safe in the middle of it, parked the buggy outside a little shed, and just sat in a shed for 15 minutes. And I couldn't like idly read Twitter or anything, because I'd gotten like almost ahead of the curve really quickly from initially stealing someone's car, like already pretty well geared.
Did you hide your ride?
No, I left it outside, and because you play in a third person camera, you can cheat a bit, look around corners. Left it so I could see it, so that someone might go and take it, in which case I could pop the door up and shoot them and then come back in.
Yeah.
I dropped all my spare guns in a pile in front of the door, so if they didn't open the door, they'd see them first. And that worked. Like, someone opened the door, went, ooh, and then I killed them. And then just waited there for like 15, 20 minutes. Like, cause there's nothing to do at that point, except wait to see where the circle shrinks to. And then just wait to see what happens next. And just wait. And it's really interesting, like, the pace of it changes so dramatically from the kind of initial rush to like getting your stuff to either dying or not. And then to this mid-game where, like, I've spent an equal amount of time just lying in a bush, like overlooking the area I know it's going to shrink to, just listening. Because you can't listen to music or listen to a podcast or anything, because sound is incredibly important. There's no way of seeing other players on your radar at all. You have to be able to, but hearing them is everything. Hearing engines in the distance will tell you that someone's coming in a car. Like, I don't know, there's something kind of like, and then it gets sort of weirdly peaceful and atmospheric, despite it being presented in this kind of like Player Unknown's Battlegrounds kind of dude bro, tribal tattoo, wolf explosion kind of aesthetic. Yeah, it's a weird thing, but I never played King of the Hill H1Z1, so I don't know how similar it is. I imagine it's quite similar, but
I only played the Minecraft ones years ago.
Yeah, but
we should do that.
Yeah,
we should love to play that. Yeah,
it's fun. Like, there's a nice sort of. It doesn't really matter if you lose at the end. It's always anticlimactic to have that kind of like, oh god, no. But so far, I've always felt that I've died because I've made like a fatal error right at the end. Like, I've revealed myself, my position. Particularly when you get those really tense ones where it'll just come down to like, you want to hide somewhere in this forest where you know it's going to end, but you want to hide somewhere you can't be flanked or caught out. But then you go for that one shot that you just shouldn't take to try and kill someone because you've seen them first, but you fuck it up and they turn. But it's not that kills you. It's the other guy who hears that shot that kills you. They've even taken advantage of that by like, I noticed at one point that I saw one person enter a town, I saw a different person enter the same town from a different direction. Then I caught a glimpse of the other guy, like, looting a building. And I was on a nearby hillside, just fired a couple of shots at him. And as soon as he shot back, I ran back up the hill, got in my bike and left. And then I could hear the gunshots, because as soon as that happens, you set them against each other and then you can just leave. Yeah. And that's a really cool, like, because winning is not,
Yeah, you don't have to kill people to win.
You do not, you just have to survive and get them to kill each other. And yeah, it's cool. Yeah, genuinely fun. Like it. We should definitely play a little bit more of it. I can see with it, I suppose I become naturally cynical about games that are so clearly great for Twitch, so clearly great for YouTube, but maybe that's just because they generate funny moments with enough regularity that it's good.
They're good to play as well.
Yeah. And
who is PlayerUnknown?
I think he was a developer on H1Z1.
Ah, okay. I remember reading that the reason it's called that is because some people know who that is.
Yeah, do not know.
And maybe Battlegrounds is trademarked by something else. I needed that prefix.
Yeah, I think they probably would have liked to call it Battle Royale, but I'm sure that is trademarked.
Yeah. But no, it's it looks like it's easy to be cynical about things that have that aesthetic because it is the look of the DayZ clone
with a Dubro thing over the top. So it's kind of what it's lost in the kind of the mod scrappiness, it's gained in Dubro-ness.
Dude one, bro one.
Yeah. I mean, so you make a character when you boot it up, and that character is tied to your Steam account, and you can never change them. And I just clicked through because I wanted to play it, and I ended up with a guy who looks like Nathan Fillion, essentially. So getting around that. And changing that character costs like 3,000 currency, and you maybe get like between 50 and 100 for a game. So it's a lot of grind. And you can but you can buy like loot chests for a scaling amount that starts at 700, and then the second one is 1,400. So as soon as I got to 700 points, it's like, I'll buy a loot chest and get a new hat to begin the game with or whatever. And I got a pair of old working boots from it. It's like, this is the least, only that as well.
Oh, the people on the plane will really be impressed with me.
It's like, this is the least satisfactory, loot box experience I've ever had. That stuff definitely feels super rudimentary.
Is there a real money way of getting this?
It feels like a hook for one, yeah. There's if you link it to your Twitch account, you get like a Twitch t-shirt, stuff like that. So I think they're going to do loads of stuff with that. It's completely unnecessary though, because also if you kill someone, you can steal their clothes.
That you keep that gets tied to your account?
No, you don't. You can just wear it for the duration of the game, but that's what it's for, right? It's worth taking off bright clothes and putting on darker clothes because then you're less easy to spot. Yeah, it's nice.
PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
PlayerUnknown's
PUBG, as it's often called.
PUBG.
Punkbat was I think it's Alice O'Connor's name for it, which is great.
Yeah.
It should totally just be called Punkbat. But yeah. It's Fast DayZ, which turns out is the correct way to do DayZ.
My experiences of DayZ were exclusively walking through unoccupied forests and wanting to start playing a game.
Yeah, it sounds like DayZ.
Because I couldn't enjoy walking through the forests because I was constantly afraid of being shot, and yet I never was shot at.
I think that's the thing. The PC Gamer live stream we did, which went up as a magazine feature, is the greatest DayZ experience I've ever had and will ever have. And it was amazing, and it took advantage of all of the things that game can do, and it will never happen again, and it's completely unrepeatable. Whereas I think, again, it's that cynical sort of dialing back of ambition thing where it's like, if this was just a game that lasted half an hour, a bunch of people tried to shoot each other on an island, it would probably be fine. Yeah. And that's what this is. It's the reasonable scope DayZ, which is a less sexy name than PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Well scoped gun survival game. 2.
Royale.
Should we do questions?
Yes.
Good.
That's never going to not be awkward, is it? Have we ever done that seamlessly? I don't think so.
I thought it looked really natural.
My favourite times are when we comment on it to make sure that if anyone did think it was natural, that now they don't.
Well, then you'll love this that is happening now. Thanks, Tom.
Second tier commenting.
Wow. Everything's better down where it's meta, as they sang in The Little Mermaid. Pierre writes, cars, bikes, boats, planes, helicopters, lorries, quads, running, horses, magic, eagles, flying, etc. What's the funnest way to get around?
Grappling hook and paraglider thing. What's it? Paraglider?
Parasail?
Parasail, yeah. Just Cause. The Just Cause thing. Actually, particularly Just Cause 3, where you have the wingsuit as well, because then it's about like, you kind of use your grappling hook to get up speed, use your parasail to, get lift, but then once you kind of have enough speed, you can just use the wingsuit and kind of skim close to the ground, and you get a bit of lift doing that. And that's the one game where I will just I'll start going somewhere and then I'll just get so into movement that I'll just spend the next 10 minutes just flying around the island with no objective, just to enjoy it.
That's how I feel about skiing and jetpacks, also, as it's also known, tribes. Because the good thing about the tribe system is, it means the ground isn't your enemy in the way it is with the grapple hook and para wingsuit based system. It's just another part of the journey, man.
Well said.
Alex? Batman, it's much more simple.
I like to ride Batman around. Super. Get on his shoulders. Tell him where to go.
Where the skill's been removed pretty much in Batman City, Arkham City and...
Batman City.
Batman City.
City.
That is where it's...
We Batman City on rock and roll. Sorry, that was a stupid thing to say.
I was going to do a take me down to Batman City thing, but I couldn't figure out how to finish it.
I've lost my thread.
The answer is yes.
Batman.
Gliding.
What?
Cape gliding.
Gliding.
That's what you're talking about.
Cape
gliding, jetpacks, skiing, etc. Not horses.
Yeah, none of them are vehicles or human modes of movement.
You just need a bit of skill in it, though. That's the thing.
A little bit of skill.
And I think it's...
Because you want to do something while you're moving. That's the thing.
Yeah, you want to be...
That sound like song lyrics.
Yeah, exactly. You got to do something when you're moving.
That's the thing.
In Batman City.
I did... I purposefully didn't pronounce my G's as well. Like a real rock and roll star.
You're the most rock and roll person I know, Alex.
Thanks, man.
You are. Just, don't let all that Minecraft book money turn you into a monster.
Lying in piles of the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's happened before. Javier writes, Dear crooks and criminals, as a member of the Payday 2 community, I found your discussion about keeping games with a long life alive to be really fascinating. Payday 2 has secretly existed as a sort of MMO, adding a little bit of new content every couple of months. Many players have hundreds of hours and hardcore players have thousands. This investment in the game means every disagreement has gone absolutely nuclear. Most games journalists, and he puts that phrase in inverted commas, as it should be.
So called.
Know the game due to the meltdown last year when they added microtransactions despite promising to never do so. This resolved itself in the best way possible. They, I think he means the developers, bought themselves out of their distribution agreement and removed microtransactions, although not retroactively. Still, during this time, there was a huge campaign of changing reviews on Steam, which got the game from 90% to 70-something. It was hilarious to see so many reviews like 2,000 hours, do not buy this game. Javier. So not really a question, but like a sort of update from a community you don't hear from very often.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Payday was always like on my radar as this thing that was so much huger than we could possibly acknowledge. Not being part of that community, it just kept selling just crazy amounts. And then when they did add microtransactions, they probably made a lot of money from that. Although they also pissed off everybody.
You could say they got a big payday too.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's funny about the Steam reviews thing because they're often used for activism now, and it's hard to say what should does the system need to change? Because after the change they're asking for has happened, which in this case it sounds like it did, those reviews are now invalid by everyone's standards, including the person who wrote it.
Yeah, and there's also, there is a sense in the gaming community around reviews that reviews can and even should be punitive if a developer is believed to have done wrong.
Yeah, you absolutely see that in the
comments threads for reviews.
Well, on Metacritic, like critics versus the user score, when there's a game that has some contentious problem, the critics will give it like 60% and the users will give it 0.
Yeah.
If they like it, it's 10.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting phenomenon, like, because reviews absolutely shouldn't do that. They do not have that role. The purpose of a review is to tell you something is good. It's not to punish. Like, if anything, the last person a review should be concerned with is the developer and what they have and haven't done. Obviously, if something has the bearing on the experience of a consumer, then yeah, absolutely. But if it's like, the sort of the strange kind of conflicting thing that stops anything from being objective, yet is insisted upon by people who insist that reviews be objective. Like, this developer endorses a particular kind of DRM, therefore you should punish them in the review score for a game that has nothing to do with that. You know, if something if their, security software is making the game harder to run and less fun to play, then you factor that in, presumably. But the notion that something has almost like symbolic value that needs to be represented.
Are you talking about Rhyme there? Because that was the most recent one I noticed about that exact argument.
I actually wasn't, and it's such a repeated theme that I can just,
you can trot it out. But it's funny though, because the kind of people who are active in doing that kind of thing are a very self-selecting group, and Payday 2 developers will know far more about how representative and what proportion they take of the game's overall playing population, and which is kind of, but of course that's not the impression that any prospective buyer or kind of the outside world ever takes, because you see the page and you think everybody hates that game, and that's not necessarily true at all, because it's going to be the kind of people who take to writing long reviews or nasty spirited reviews are kind of a self-selecting kind of bunch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like comment threads. We gamified misery.
Thanks, team.
Thanks, everyone. Next up is friend of the pod, John T. John Hicks,
Lovely
everybody.
John.
Gamer Network's John Hicks, who helped us put together the Res show. Made that happen. Thanks, John T. Here's his question. Dear friends.
Actual IRL friends.
Actual IRL friends. Basically responsible for me being in the games industry. With you, Alex, weirdly.
Oh,
there's the two of you.
Because that's when he was editor of Actual Xbox.
Yeah, I got really, really drunk with him after the Eurogamer Expo in 2010. And through that, I ended up sending some work to Mike Channel, who was at that time of Outside Xbox, who was at that time the deputy editor of Official Xbox, and he sent that to you on Edge. And then you secretly hired me to review indie games for a while. And that was the beginning of my entire life changing forever.
Sorry.
Apology accepted.
Sorry.
Anyway, John T's life. John T's question is...
John T's life.
Let's do John T's life.
I'll summarise.
Dear friends, John T writes, I have finally caught up with the Bundvacheg episode, which is outstanding. A little high five there, Alex.
Sorry, John.
My hypothesis is that the repeated references to lewd narrative dissonance...
Yep.
You just made a little noise. Irresponsible
noise.
Driving so-and-so.
I did think I wanted to... I was toying with having a beer. Anyway.
Actually, the plot twist for that entire episode is that Alex wasn't drinking.
I did have a little bit. I had some...
Oh, yeah, a little near the start, but yeah.
But being a dad doesn't take much.
Doesn't take much.
Didn't take anything.
Not much for a dad. In the first half meant that everyone had to take multiple drinks early on, meaning that you were thoroughly plastered by the time that questions rolled around. Given that I can't test this by asking a question because you wouldn't hit the trigger phrase until too late for it to have such an impact, I'm wondering how to force its inclusion in future episodes. So my question is, what future games, confirmed or hypothetical, would you anticipate to be hotbeds of lewd narrative dissonance? I'll have a word with the industry Illuminati and see if we can have them all be in the headlines at once, thus forcing an early run of extra drinking and confirming or denying my theory. Keep up the good work, sloshed or otherwise, John T, who remains ever the scientist.
That's an extremely sociopathic way to go about bringing about good podcast material.
Classic John T.
That's classic John T.
Thanks, John T.
I think, there's all these rumours that there's a new Elder Scrolls to be announced, presumably. I think that's prime territory. Far Cry 5 is prime territory.
Yeah, that was the first one that sprung to my mind.
That's just going to be full of it, because guess what? Real America doesn't have... Oh, well, it has a lot of those things, I think, actually.
You're a policeman. You're a policeman sent in to, like, diffuse the situation, and I'm just going to guess, but I don't think you diffuse it. I think you make it.
The trailer pointedly does have a bit where a man is being chased by a bear. Like, things got out of hand, and you could say that
Case closed.
You could say that aspect of your narrative setup was dissonant with the Ludo.
Exactly.
Which is not to be confused with Lido narrative dissonance, which is what happens if you stole someone's swimming pool apparatus and you tell them a tall tale in order to get away with it.
I'm not sure that quite matches up to what I'm saying with my Lido here.
No, I bought this. This is my Lido. It's definitely... What do you mean? Etc. I didn't think that bit through. Yeah, Elder Scrolls is a really obvious contender for this. Assassin's Creed is a really obvious contender for this. There was like a bit of leaked... God, game leaks are the stupidest thing. It was like a leaked physical bit of card for pre-ordering Assassin's Creed Origins Egypt 2.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Where you have a pet eagle.
Because there was a big sign at a previous E3 that was like, pre-order now to unlock special trousers.
This was pre-order now to unlock the secrets of the first pyramids.
Right. I think it was like Brotherhood or something, or maybe even Assassin's Creed 3. There was an unlock secret trousers.
Oh yeah, no, that was it was Assassin's Creed Unity. It was Unity because Unity was the one that had like a loot system, like a meaningful trouser centric loot system.
Maybe it was pants actually, because they would have phrased it in American, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't have been trousers.
But it's set in London.
Both words are
it was Paris. Yeah.
So it's all pantaloons.
Pantalon.
Oh, the secret pantaloons. Le pantalons secret.
We're so good at French.
I'm pretty sure Especial is Spanish.
Pantalons. Especial.
Why have you done this to us, John T? You somehow managed it. Thus disproving your theory entirely.
Joke's on you. If I was telling someone a false narrative about how I stole their Lido and they caught me in it, my justification would be, well, it's a Lido, not a truth dough.
Oh, no.
I started imagining what a Ludomancer would be.
Ludomancer.
The Ludomancers. Attack of the Ludomancers.
Like,
just make games
game
really
summoner.
easy.
Yeah.
They make your world into a game.
Just throw a Rubik's Cube at someone's head.
That'd be really annoying. They'd sort of like dance around.
Like the Riddler, basically.
There you go.
Yeah, from Batman City. The Ludomancer.
Riddle Man from Batman City.
Where the grass is green and the girls are pretty.
We got there. That was
the character's green and the riddles are shitty.
This is going a bit Bunvercheck.
Oh no, it's going a bit Bunvercheck. It's you, Alex. It's you. It's always you.
It was John T's fault, though. He started this one.
Can't believe we've managed to come up with an alternative theme tune for Batman in the space of answering this question about something.
What was it about? Far Cry.
It's probably about Far Cry. Patrick writes, Dear Pip and Pip's sidekicks, on the last pod you talked about watching RTSs be played by people skilled at micro. The rat-a-tat-tat of shields deploying in StarCraft, each one a manual click from someone with an APM count comparable to a hummingbird heart. Perhaps it's because I've been playing an unhealthy quantity of automation them up. That's hard to say. Factorio recently, and have been inspired by discussions of Quadrilateral Cowboy, Hackmud, and various Zachtronics games. But do you see a place for automation in RTSs? As an owner of poor reaction times, I confess my ignorance here. I know scripting is the bane of FPS at least. However, much like the suggestion to have a no drug testing league for certain sports, could there be a niche for task offloading in an RTS, or would this quickly devolve to who can write the best AI? I sneezed. Who can write the best AI? A combination of automated tools and human ingenuity could lead to an epic chess boxing-like blend, but I don't know if it could work. Thoughts, Patrick? I'm going to sneeze.
Oh no.
I apologise profusely for the fact that your question made me sneeze for some reason.
You're allergic to this kind of questioning. I really like Supreme Commander for this. It lets you automate a whole load of things. Like you can do stuff like this factory should build units that go to this location, and when they arrive at that location, they should start patrolling in this pattern, and they'll just do that forever. And it should build an infinite number of those units. And also it should build 2 of this type of unit, and then 1 of that, and then 1 of that, and then it should loop that build queue. Yeah, it's really good for that kind of thing. I also, I always wanted to make an RTS, and one part of that plan was that, you know how when you have like a metagame strategy map and a battle happens on that, and you have a choice of whether to auto-resolve it or play it yourself. My idea was you should have to, if you want to auto-resolve it, you've got to, there's like a base AI, but you can tell it how aggressive to be or like which units to value. You can tell it like this, I don't know, if it was StarCraft, like roaches are worth like 3 points, or favor them this much, or use them in this situation. And so you would have to design that AI to some extent, and that would be what auto-resolves. So whether the auto-resolve is successful depends on how well you develop that. And then, of course, the game would quietly populate that to other people's games as enemies. So you'd be incentivized to make the best one you could, and then it would be spread to other people as an opponent.
There's a game that is being made at the moment. Going back, it's another game that's using Spatial OS, which is an RTS set in a kind of a universe, and you're taking over planets.
Universe, interesting.
In a world.
I haven't played one of those.
It's real, genuine. And you invade worlds, and then you capture them for yourself. You're playing against AI, but then there'll be other players also. So you might be against humans, you might be against just AI. And then once you've got an empire, you know, other players can be attacking your planets and your bases on those planets, and you can assign AI to manage those and because it's all persistent, it's happening when you're offline. So it has to have systems that allow your empire to sustain itself while you're not playing. And that involves programming, or I don't know how deep that system's going to be, but you'll be managing an AI to do that.
Yeah, my thinking was like, well, when you're making an AI for a strategy game anyway, you're probably going to make some kind of architecture into which you can plug values for like how important is it to take a mineral line early on or a second base or whatever. And whatever those values are, you're going to have to leave them variable because you want to adjust them as the game goes on, as balance changes and everything. And so if they're variable, then why can't the player change them? And then that obviously leads to them designing AIs.
I mean, the fact is, like medium or high level StarCraft play, or most RTS play, you know, you are doing your build, you know, you are doing builds, and they are fundamentally programmed. Like the only difference is that between, you know, can you execute them, or is it all right to kind of just have it done for you automatically?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be into that idea. I like the idea of having some of this stuff be sort of pre-planned. I think one of the things that doesn't quite come off with Dawn of War, actually, going back to it briefly, is that you do make some sort of pre-game decisions about what bonuses and things you're going to bring with you, which influences the way you're going to build your base in a pretty strong way. You're inevitably going to want to build towards those advantages that you've given yourself, depending on the matchup. But it almost, particularly given that game's emphasis on sort of manual skill micro, it would almost be interesting to have the version of it where you plan out on the map in advance how you want your little servitor units to go out and build your base, and you just focus on the battle commanding thing, like a strategy phase and a tactics phase, where the strategy phase is programming and the tactics phase is point and click kind of action stuff. Like, I'd play that game.
Would it feel like just rock, paper, scissors, you know, as opposed to something more live? Who knows?
Who knows?
Until Tom makes the game.
Don't hold your breath.
This is a good one. Steve writes, Dear Creighton Crowbar, as game critics, which he didn't put in inverted commas, what do you think is the The problem with Arsenal is they always try and walk it into the back of the net of games criticism. Cheers, Steve. So if you're not aware of British sitcom The IT Crowd, this might bear explaining, given that I appreciate that we have an international audience. That phrase is used as a sort of stand-in for something you can comfortably say about football that makes you sound like you know what you're talking about, even if you have no idea how to have a conversation about football with another human being.
Yeah, this is like coming at it from the perspective of that being actually a terrible thing to say, like a obviously transparently stupid thing to say. But you can't just go in guns blazing. That line just comes up in every fucking review I read for like 10 years. And
any immersive sim.
You never can. It's just, that's just not. And then more recently, obviously that actually only does apply to a certain genre of games. I mean, although, you want to say like Call of Duty is a game where you can go in guns blazing.
Settlers of Catan, you can't just go in guns blazing.
Call of Duty, you got to hide behind crates. You got to duck out. You can't just go in guns blazing. And then the other one is, it's not without its flaws. Every fucking, of course it isn't. Nothing is.
Yeah. There's variance on, for the right kind of player. But that is that kind of like, if this
fans of the genre.
We're getting to the banned cliche list.
Yeah, this is
Graham's smorgasbord.
Mine are both bad. Is there a good one?
Pseudy. Well, it's not quite pseudy, but it's the kind of, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I want to appear like I do.
It's evolution, not revolution, but that's also a terrible cliche that must be banned. I mean, anything, if we were a bunch of like football fans talking about this, we would be saying that phrase that Arsenal always try and walk it in would be banned, right? That would be a fucking sick cliche we're all sick of and it's stupid. So I think whatever the phrase is for games journalism, it'll be a cliche we're sick of.
Mm. Yeah, I think can't just go and guns blazing is a really good pick for that reason. I think it tends to always, when this sort of thing steeps into style guides, it's always around specific words. So visceral being broadly banned, found for good reason.
And people really like that word, as if it does mean something.
Interesting, I hate.
I've
hard to avoid.
Committed that one so many times. I mean, I totally agree. It's terrible.
It's the worst word because essentially what it means is this prompted me to think or experience something.
Yeah, that's true.
This held my interest as a receptive brain with eyes attached.
God, if you want to talk to like game designers, that's the only word you'll ever get. Yeah. It's just everything is like that's the only virtue we know.
But they're not paid to express things.
Yeah, but it's the problem because everything kind of is interesting. And to be honest, if we're all honest with ourselves, games only occasionally get above interesting into like worthwhile, right? Like that's the thing we should celebrate. But it is still the worst thing to ever say about a game.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, actually, to be honest, this will probably be contentious. My answer to this question is the word gameplay.
Ooh, yeah, I know it was a banned PC gamer word.
It still is. Yeah.
But
I have started using it since
it's a word that you need to describe a certain component of a game.
You can just say play or game.
For me, the time when I started using it, like, was when I switched to game development, and it just becomes really important to
Developers
say, like,
use it
does this thing affect the fundamental mechanics of the game, the systems, the functions, or is it purely aesthetic? Yeah. So that's what I use it as, is just, as opposed to aesthetic, is it...
Then you can't quite use play. You can't quite use play because play is too broader words. Like, the play is the act as opposed to the set of rules. You see what I mean?
I'm with PC Gamer, former production editor Tony Ellis on this. I think as a journalist or as a critic, if you ever use the word gameplay, you can always be more precise than you're being.
I would agree, yes.
I think I can see where it maybe has value for developers, but it has value in a way that shouldn't ever really concern a journalist for whom the look and feel of the thing are always going to be linked. Like,
in a lot of the stuff that I've been writing recently, which are kind of in-depth, or they tried to be in-depth kind of sort of looks at how things were designed, it's very difficult not to use the word gameplay quite often, because you're trying to separate out, as Tom said, setting elements from this element and that kind of thing.
I just always feel like this is why I always think you can be.
But as a criticism, I think yes, because you can always be more specific about the part of a player's experience. Which
maybe. I suppose if you're doing a lot of sort of like dev perspective writing, then I can see where you'd adopt that terminology. But like
it's always worth a debate. It's always worth an internal debate.
Been away from PC Gamer for 3 months now, and I haven't used that word once. Like it's gone.
Congratulations.
No, but like I've never felt that compulsion, right? Like I have no use for it. I've never hit a situation where it would mean anything.
Yeah.
Like I really do think it's a weird. I like one of the reasons I dislike
it's a bit like horseback.
Yeah.
When you say I'm riding on horseback.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to
Problem with Bethesda is they always try and gameplay it.
Yeah, exactly. They always try and gameplay it into that mountain. You can go there.
Smooth.
Yeah, like it's. I think it's a weird. I think it has the effect of sort of breaking down a game into its component parts in a way that I feel diminishes the whole of what a game is. It's a hangover from extremely technical descriptions of how games operate, which may be why it remains more useful for people who actually make games than people who I think experience them. But I think its use encourages that technical view of games in the audience, which isn't necessarily helpful because it's not, games are super complicated experiences. They're made up of lots of discrete things and discrete mechanics and discrete feedback loops and animations and sounds and all of these different things. And if you're trying to describe a game accurately, it's a complicated thing. Like, and I've always felt that gameplay is a cop out. Like, yeah, that's the hill I can die on. Gameplay hill.
Why did you have to call it this? What did I just say?
Scatter my ashes on mechanics and sound hill. Hang on to that one. Daniel writes, "Hey folks, I don't have a witty portmanteau on the name of the podcast. Sorry, I'm a computer." I misread.
It's understandable then.
He's not a computer.
Famously bad.
He's a human man. I'm at the University of Washington in Tacoma studying computer engineering and data science, and I'll leave it up to the audience to figure out how I managed to skip to the second half of that sentence. I analyze wireless sensor networks and such. It's a fun gig. I spend a lot of time thinking about machine learning, and I happen to be playing a lot of Endless Space 2, as I'm now off for the summer from school. Diplomacy, as in most 4X games in Endless Space 2, is boring and dull. What would you think about a developer implementing a rating system for a single-player game where you rate the decisions an AI made against you, and where those ratings would go into weighing the future decisions that AI would make? Would you accept A/B testing on a single-player content like this, even if it meant you might be in the bucket of people that hate a design decision? Daniel.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting area. The obvious potential problem is that is a player motivated to make the AI harder? Like, if you're asking them, did that perform well against you, and they actually found the game really easy, they might be tempted to lie and say, oh yeah, that was perfect, because they, don't want the AI to get too good, or you never really know what the player's motives are. You can tell them what you're looking for and say, we want to make the AI better, please help us. But they might fight against you, they might, in a local,
if it's used locally only and not globally, that means the player is kind of shaping the game they want to play.
So it only changes theirs, yeah.
But for global information, maybe that is a bit.
Yeah, I wonder how players would react to it, because there is a sort of a general problem where, like, if you give people a way to make things easier for themselves, even if it won't make it more fun and they have no reason to think it will make it more fun, they feel incentivized to take it. It depends how kind of in-game it is. I was, the thing that springs to mind is Infinifactory, where after every puzzle it would ask you, like, how hard did you find this and how much do you enjoy it? And you could say, like, too easy, just right, too hard, and how much you enjoy it, like, didn't enjoy it, all right, or enjoyed it a lot. And I would always say too hard, and I enjoyed it a lot. I'm asking you to make this easier, but don't make it easier. It's great. Because I always felt that at the end of it. It's like, God, that was just at the limit of my ability. That was really brutal, and I feel exhausted. And but yeah, I loved it. And it's like, it's interesting that that they chose to ask those questions separately, because there's definitely there's a lot of designers who would assume that too hard means I didn't enjoy it, and there's a lot of designers who would assume that, you know.
But I think design, like, part of design is to understand what people are telling them about a game, and really, as opposed to the words people say and the questions that you ask them to kind of to understand what they actually feel.
Yeah,
quite a sort of a delicate art.
I'd be really interested, actually, because I've seen, Infinity Factory did it. One of the Assassin's Creed games asks you to rate the missions you just played. It's kind of done as part of the Abstergo
Unity again, I think.
Right. But it really is part of the game. Like, it is being sent to Ubisoft. And I would really like to know, maybe our listeners can help us out, if anyone's ever talked about the data they got from that kind of thing and whether it was useful and what they did with it. Like, because it seems like a good idea in theory. And
surely there's if you've got the right sort of telemetry in the game, that you're seeing players' decisions, that's probably, when analysed with the right kind of statistical sort of whatnots, surely that's probably more valuable.
So that is what mobile games do to crazy extents, is they have a really deep analytic system. Well, I'm saying mobile games, like the really serious big companies who make a lot of money doing this have incredibly sophisticated metric systems, and they learn everything about how their players behave and everything their players did, and optimize for that, because a lot of those games are trying to optimize for money, right? They have a really measurable success metric. It's like, did the player buy the thing? How much did they spend? And they can just, once you have that, you can optimize like crazy. You may not be optimizing for fun, and also if you don't optimize for fun, you may actually be hurting your long-term prospects of that game, but who knows what the relationship there is. But things where it's much more fuzzy when the thing you're optimizing for is like, did they like it? Because that's harder to measure. And it's also more fuzzy when the way the data you're getting is their opinions. And that's why I'm interested to know if this has ever worked, because it seems promising to get people's opinions by asking them, but maybe the lying aspect is just completely swamps all the real data, or maybe just people just
are weird though,
differently.
Because it's quite common now for a game. I think it was Devil May Cry was one of the first ones that did it. If you failed on a level, several times, it would say, "Do you want to change the difficulty to easy?" And like a lot of people would say,
like,
no way, I'm too good for that. Like, despite probably enjoying the game a bit more if they had.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of heard that from many people, like, who will just hit a brick wall on medium difficulty and will absolutely refuse to reduce it to easy just because it's called easy. Like, if the difficulty they were on was called hard and it defaulted to hard and everything else was exactly the same and there was just one called normal, even if normal is the lowest difficulty run, I'm sure they'd go to it. But because it's called easy, they're just not choosing easy.
Yeah, it's all in the question, and all in the names.
It's all in the mind.
Ultimately, yes.
Stephen writes, "Greetings, Crocs and Cane Toads. Every RPG has a power curve, a general feeling of how fast and how far you progress through the game. Some games are a painfully slow march from gormless to godlike, others start you off relatively strong and advance quickly from there. My question is, what's your favourite power curve? What game gave you the best rags to riches feeling, and what game made your progress feel worthwhile and rewarding? My vote is for Bethesda RPGs, but I'd like to hear your take. Fans for glistening, Eerie Birdie." Stephen.
I think mine, unfortunately, is not on PC currently, but it's Horizon Zero Dawn. Because I felt like you do level up and you do get more skills, and some of those have a big effect on your sort of overall viability. But for the most part, I was getting better by just figuring out the enemies and learning that, these guys, if you shoot a freeze arrow into that freeze canister, it's going to and you freeze this one and all the adjacent ones, and then they're going to take so much more damage that if you then hit them with a sticky bomb, it's going to wipe them out in one hit. And there are, I think, like 20 different kinds of enemies in that game, and for each one there's a time when it seems like the scariest thing in the world, and then 3 hours later there's a time when it's just, I've just solved that, I just know how to deal with that enemy, and I know how to take them out, and now they're the kind of cannon fodder, and I'm really worrying about this fucking robot mole.
The dickhead robot mole.
Those fucking moles. I never really got to the point with those where I mastered them. I did get better at them, but that was the...
You just shoot off the little flangey bits so they don't go...
You got to shoot off the flangey bits of the robot mole.
Rich in podcast titles.
So that is a feeling that I got from Monster Hunter, which is very much about mastery, where you're supported by getting better gear, but fundamentally it's through experience of fighting particular monsters, and it has a lot of different monsters, and every time you see a new one, it'll flatten you, and then you start to just learn its movements, and it telegraphs stuff as a language that you don't know when you start playing that monster, and then you instinctively start to get it, and then you start to expressly get it. That's a really good feeling. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
And the way it's supported by getting better gear as well is sort of underlines it, supports it, scaffolds it. It's lovely.
I think that there actually are a lot of games that have this kind of like are quite light on their real progression system, but the most of the progress you make is in your own head and in your own skill training. I mean, actually, Spelunky is a game where once you can play Spelunky well, you can complete it in half an hour. But when you start, it seems utterly impossible that you could ever get out of the first world, and you just learn through muscle memory and experience and learning how everything behaves. But I guess like that's almost not a progression system. It's just the lack of a progression system. And yeah, I'm trying to think of like progression systems that I liked for how they affected stats.
I thought I had one, because I was also thinking about Fire Emblem. I was thinking Awakening in particular, which came out maybe 3 years ago or something.
Good game.
It's a lovely game. And that one, obviously your stats are rising. It has the level up little animation. It's always been really nice in that game. But they become definably more powerful in a really nice curve. But really, they become more powerful as you start to learn their abilities, and you also they start to back each other up. In Awakening, if you do things next to other characters, they develop affinities, friendships with each other, and as their friendships grow, they will start to back you up on attacks and will defend you more often if they're next to you. So you start to arrange them in lines next to each other, so to kind of maximize that kind of thing. So it's a really hand-in-hand kind of stats and kind of play, strategy, sort of hand-in-hand thing.
I think actually one of the reasons that Horizon stuck with me in this respect was that aspect of you learning how an enemy works and how to defeat it was formalized in the game as a kind of notebook that you could read. And so every time I came up against an enemy, first thing I would hit was the menu button, go into my notebook, remind myself, what does a howler do, or what does a tall neck do? Where are its weak spots? What are the weak spots vulnerable to? What will happen when I hit them? And so that knowledge, you are learning it, and eventually you will get it all instinctively. But for that long period where you have access to it, you have encountered this thing before, but you haven't totally internalized it, the game supports you there and says, like, okay, just stop and look. And also that kind of feels like a very huntery thing to do, like maybe not physically having a notebook with you, but that thing of like seeing your enemy, stopping, sort of consulting your, I guess, long-term memory of like, what is this again? How do I approach it? And then coming up with a plan based on that is really cool.
Yeah.
Next question comes from Travis, who writes, Entaro Adun, those of Crate and Crowbar. Why is Tom F. so wrong about Protoss plot whiffle?
What?
Also, does his hatred of reverse echo voice effects apply to Shodan's voice as well? Just how wrong can one person be? Love, Travis, aka TJ Howes on Discord.
Thanks. Alright, well, you got me there because I do like Showdown, but I'm not sure I actually like the Showdown. The Showdown filter in System Shock 2 anyway has a lot of elements to it, and there's a lot of different things. Like, she'll say something and there'll be like multiple other voices saying that same thing in like rapid echoes and things. Or maybe I'm thinking of the Many. Maybe it's the Many who do that. It's been a long time.
It sounds like a Many sort of thing to do.
You haven't watched any of the Protoss stuff. I've just been skipping it. But suddenly, as he mentioned that, I realized like last night I had a whole fucking Blizzard lore evening because I didn't totally skip all of the Protoss scenes around that climactic mission where I had to recruit those people, and I really liked that. And even though I had skipped most of the story, I felt like I got the gist of this uniting the clans type vibe. And I watched the whole Warcraft movie.
As in the entire, like, the Duncan Jones cinematic movie.
Yeah.
Was there any?
That film ain't great.
It was, I thought I was not going to watch it after the first, like, 5 minutes. I really was not into it. And then I kind of did get into it. And I sort of, like, it's really, like, it looks really bad. I think I just hate the way it looks. It looks incredibly fake. And it has the feel of, this is too harsh, but it has the feel of like a high school production of something. Like, they're not in that it's literally at that quality level, but it just that sense of shooting so far above your production capability. Like, we're going for, fucking, like, Game of Thrones level of quality, but with far more fantastical elements and far bigger scope. And also we have none of their ability or budget. And so everything's just like heavily post-processed, and there's loads of really high contrast filters and stuff on it. But I have to say, I sort of ended up kind of interested in the story, and I ended up following all of the story, and it made perfect sense to me in a way that, you know, a lot of fantasy guff does not. And I've played all of the Warcraft games to completion, and I don't think so I don't know how much the plot is the same. But if fell magic is a thing in those games, it's not.
It is. It's so the Warcraft movie is kind of like a retelling of the plot of the first Warcraft game, but with loads of stuff from World of Warcraft bolted onto it.
Right.
So it's almost like it's sort of like it factors in loads of things that were subsequently added to that universe.
So in the movie, like, fell magic is a special kind of magic that's super powerful, but it drains life. And the reason the Orc homeworld is garbage is that they've used it too much.
Pretty much. Yeah,
and
it's like
so
fossil fuels.
That's why they're going through the portal to get at Azeroth, and that's why the Orcs show up and why the whole conflict happens. And if I've been told that before, I don't think I fully grasped it. And so credit where it's due, this movie explained that to me in a way that I understood.
I think that's a slight change to what happens in the
That would explain why I
games.
didn't get that from the games.
I think in the games,
that isn't what happened.
Wasn't there demons going?
Yeah, I think in the games they make a deal with a big demon called, what the fuck is his name? It's not Asmodan. He just looks like Asmodan. Asmodan is the Diablo one that looks exactly the same. What the fuck is his name? I can't remember. Big spider-legged demon dude.
Michael.
Yeah, Michael. And Michael from Arrested Development. Michael Bluth is his full name.
Yeah.
And
and interdimensional Bluth.
Yeah. And they turn green.
I found myself quite interested in how Dominic Cooper and Tim Minchin would save this.
Yeah, exactly. He really looks like Tim Minchin.
Medivh looks like Tim Minchin.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've not been able to take Dominic Cooper seriously as an actor since me, Marsh, and Pip watched Dracula Untold while a bit drunk. Dracula Untold is a very similar tier of fantasy adventure movie to Warcraft. And Dominic Cooper is in it. That's an important fact to note. However, when we started watching it, we got completely confused about which man Dominic Cooper was. And so we spent the first part of the film making fun of Dominic Cooper for doing things that Dominic Cooper wasn't doing. Dominic Cooper was playing the villain who doesn't show up till a little bit later. So when Dominic Cooper did show up, this created a kind of like taxonomic crisis of how exactly we made fun of both characters, really. And unfortunately for the film, it ends in a climactic scene where the tragic hero who's doomed to become Dracula from being just Prince Vlad Impalison or whatever his name is, wrestles the Persian prince that Dominic Cooper is inexplicably playing, and looks him in the eyes and says something like, "My old name is dead. And he goes to start saying Dracula, and we all shouted in unison, "Dominic Cooper!" And he's not Dominic Cooper, it's the other guy. But that has forever ruined. So whenever this is a long story to explain one half of this, but I spent the entire Warcraft movie, every time King Lane is on screen, just hearing Marsh's voice shout, "I'm Dominic Cooper!" And I can't not hear that. Every time he was in a play at the Bath Playhouse, and his poster was everywhere all over, but every time I saw it, "I'm Dominic Cooper." Like Spartacus, but less so. But no, did you enjoy it though? Because I saw it in the cinema and just I was sort of existentially embarrassed the entire time. And it was such a shame because I really like Duncan Jones as a director, and it's just...
Yeah, it is awful. But like I say, early on I thought I was going to just stop watching it. And it takes a pretty bad film for me to actually stop watching it. I've done it a few times recently. The second Divergent film. I made it through one Divergent film. Second one, I'm like, I fucking had it with this. This is garbage.
You've diverged too far.
And then I didn't, and I ended up being kind of interested in it, like, just on a basic plot mechanics level. I think there is a level of, like, quite a big skill in screenwriting to just communicating what is going on and making it clear what needs to happen and showing that there is an obstacle here that needs to be overcome, and like basic screenwriting mechanics that definitely some films lack, and lots of things don't get made because of that lacking. And I feel like everything else failed, and that was just the basic mechanics were pretty good.
I did an interview with Duncan Jones before it came out, and looking back, he did spend a lot of time telling me just how much effort they put into making things make sense.
Yeah, because particularly with a fantasy film, that is quite hard. Like, I feel like I followed this better than I followed any of the Lord of the Rings films. Like, with those, I was like, individual scenes I was following, and then the overall gist of like, why are they doing this? I've forgotten now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird, like, they set themselves a weird task. I think it doesn't make a great case for why that style of storytelling adapts well. Weirdly, I think this is style of sort of overblown, highly derivative kind of fantasy thing is good for games because it's big and obvious, and the characters are big and obvious, and the cutscenes have a place because they set up the big and obviousness of the conflicting characters that you'll then kind of like act out in some way.
There's a huge amount of detail in there, but actually you don't really need all of that detail to actually get what they want you to get, which is epic stuff with big men.
Yeah, exactly. "I'm bad," shouts one big man. "I hate that," shouts the other big man. They charge at each other. Then you play Diablo. Like, like that's all it needs to be, really. Like,
but the Warcraft film was trying to appeal to players, like lore lovers, plus the kind of like liking the game broader audience, plus their partners that they dragged to the fucking cinema with them. Like, what the hell? Yeah. That's mad.
It was an impossible task.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like, I reviewed it for PC Gamer, and I still kind of like, I gave it a kicking because I think it probably should have had one.
Yeah.
Really?
That's fair.
But I felt bad about it because, like,
Duncan Jones seems a nice guy.
Yeah, he seems like a lovely dude, and like
he must have gone through hell.
I mean, it's like it's the opposite of all of like Moon is such a wonderfully conceived balance of plotting and kind of
in a very enclosed place.
Reserved high concept science fiction, but without never going beyond kind of the immediately human and relatable. In a very enclosed
Even
space.
Source code
looks immaculate.
Well.
Yeah, it looks immaculate. And
isn't there a moon in World of Warcraft?
Well, I mean,
that you go to, and like one of the expansions was like on a moon, right? That you go through a portal. I think it was when they introduced flying mounts for the first time, and at first you could only
that's
use
when
it.
they went through that was the Orcs' old world, wasn't it?
The Shadow Moon Valley. That's not a moon. That's the
I
valley.
thought there was a literal moon.
I mean, there is. I don't think so.
I dare say it probably does go to a moon.
This is all set up for a joke about Duncan Jones making a film about the moon in World of Warcraft. But if there isn't one, it doesn't work.
I guess we'll never know. But yeah. How did we get on that from... Protoss Whiffle.
Protoss, yeah.
Backwards.
I actually really enjoyed the Protoss Whiffle in Legacy of the Void. But I guess I was reviewing that as well. And it's because it's such nonsense that it's sort of just kind of enjoyable. Like,
yeah, that was a side benefit of reviewing things, is that it would force me to watch cutscenes I wouldn't normally watch, or, you know, absorb everything about a game in a way that I would normally skip.
I wouldn't normally do this, but like, I seriously recommend just watch the cutscenes as you get to the end of StarCraft Legacy.
Okay.
Because I don't want you to miss some of the best nonsense. Like, you'll finish it and you'll probably go like, yeah, that's good, that had an ending. Cool. But you won't have really seen like how dumb it manages to become in a kind of like transcendental cosmic sense. And I feel like that would be a shame.
Okay.
So but as you get into the end, you'll know when it's coming, get into the epilogue.
I thought it was coming like a mission ago.
Yeah, you'll think that for a while. I'm not sure exactly where you are, actually, based on the last mission you did, but like, yeah, you'll feel that way for a while. But then just, you know, sit yourself down and pretend it's a film.
Pour yourself a whiskey.
Yeah, indeed. You'll need one. Yeah. Yeah. Our final question is actually a grudge from Grudges. If I could apply a reverse echo effect to this, that would be unbearable. I shall just read it out. Damon writes, Dear Grudge Queen Pip and the Pipistrellas, as a rapidly aging, decrepit husk in my mid-30s, I have a certain predilection for the games of my youth, games I once enjoyed in happier, simpler times, when, let's be fair, the world was probably just as fucked, but I was yet a babe and unaware of the evils of man. Platform games in particular have always been a favourite of mine, and the recent resurgence of the formula with excellent titles such as Shovel Knight and Ori have brought joy to this leathery old heart. But alas, a grudge rears its head. While many modern takes on the genre have emulated the strongest parts of games of yore, with responsive controls and characterful low-res art, some seem hell-bent on replicating the classics, warts and all. Playing the mostly enjoyable Shantae and the Pirate's Curse recently has, appropriately perhaps, led to me swearing like a sailor. Some enemies can spawn from the ground with no warning, and seemingly no way to anticipate or avoid them. Once you clear an area, you have to trek back through it and its respawning enemies to return to your ship, even though I just proved I can negotiate that level, and doing so again is simply a drain on my time and patience. Then the final and most grievous flaw, appalling checkpointing, or to be more precise, a complete lack thereof. Coupled to the absence of autosaves in a mission I'm sure most will discover the hard way. And there is an awful lot of replaying the same sections again and again. In short, then, my grudge is this. Games which emulate old-school classics to the extent of incorporating all of their old flaws, eschewing the decades, oh god, of progress made since. I suppose what I'm saying is I wish they didn't like them like they used to. Curmudgeonly yours, Damon.
I think there's a little bit of this with the like point-and-click adventure games, which is obviously a big resurgence in that they went away for a long time and now they are in the limelight again. And for the most part, they are making like a concerted effort to fix a lot of the problems that genre used to have. But there are still a bunch of puzzles, like just in Broken Age, for example, that just make no fucking sense to me. Like where I just had to look up at a walkthrough, and even once I looked up the walkthrough, I'm like, that doesn't make any physical sense. That wouldn't be a solution to this problem. I don't know how Thimbleweed Park fares in this. I've heard generally positive things about its puzzles, but...
So, I mean, I've heard mixed things, because I know some people have had problems with the obtuseness. Weirdly, my sister, who doesn't play a lot of games, I got her Thimbleweed Park for her birthday, because Monkey Island is her favourite video game thing. And she took to it and finished it really quickly, because
cool.
in her words, the kind of logic of those puzzles made sense to her as someone who knew those games of old but hadn't played anything like that since. So, you know, can go both ways. In fact, had she not needed to return to America sooner, we would have done a pod on it to zoom in on that. So maybe that'll happen. But yeah, so I think depending on your familiarity with that logic, I think maybe going back to that logic can be fun for people, but I kind of get what you're saying, because that would put me off as well. So,
There's that Wonder Boy game that's just, I think it came out today on PC, Wonder Boy 3, which is a sort of like a lovely update to his graphics, to really kind of from this old Master System game, I think, really old. And they've preserved a great deal of what, the way that the original game worked entirely. And that was kind of, but I would be interested to learn just how well it stands up today. Actually, I haven't played it. Because as soon as you put modern sort of HD kind of things over pixels, I think it sets up a whole new expectation for the way those games work. You expect checkpoints, you expect a level of kind of guidance through it. I think that you can kind of forgive something that looks just as it did in the past in a way that you can't when it's sort of updated in that way.
But yeah, a good grudge, because it's interesting, because it's pertinent, because these things are always coming back, and they are always, there's that sense of whether or not it's better to let a genre evolve or try and reclaim it. Like, no one's trying to reclaim traditional 4X so much as they're trying to find ways to move that forward and make it slicker and more accessible, right? Like, no one pines for those interfaces, I think. I'm probably wrong.
Yep.
That is all of the grudge / question / emails from emails that we have time for this week. If you'd like to send us a question or grudge for a future episode, you can do so by emailing us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also tweet us at Crate and Crowbar. The Crate and Crowbar is very kindly supported by Patreon. If you'd like to find out more about our Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar, and that enables us to do things like the Bloodborne playthrough, which goes up every Sunday, and the Miniatures podcast, which will be returning later in the month. If you would like to, what am I missing? Hang out with our community, you can do so on Discord. The link to our Discord channel is on our website at crateandcrowbar.com. Otherwise, it's very helpful if you could rate and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever. Just if you see like a star or a thumbs up button next to the podcast somewhere, click it. What could go wrong? Unless there's multiple star buttons and one of them is 5 and one of them is 1 star, in which case click the biggest one. I don't mind. If you'd like to follow us as individuals, I'm on Twitter at CThurston. That's CTHURSTEN. Alex?
I'm at Rotational. ROTATIOAN. Oh, I thought I had it. Oh.
Rotatio
Going
anal.
around.
Rotatio anal.
That does set you up for the kind of content that I make.
Tom?
People know how to spell the word rotational.
It'll be in the show notes.
I am at Pentadact. PENTADACT.
Bam.
Damn. You're really good at that after 190 odd episodes.
Said it all up.
Thanks for listening.